Hello, and welcome to Crime and Court. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. If you're new, thank you for joining me. This is episode 11 of the Wisconsin versus Zachariah Anderson case, and we are going to be exclusively looking at Sadie Beecham's testimony on the stand and form some opinions on it as we go about. So without further ado, let's get it started. So before we get going, please hit that like button, and away we go.
Could you please state your name for the record and spell it?
Sadie Beecham, Sadiebeacham.
And Ms. Beecham, are you currently employed?
Yes.
And how are you employed?
I work for community care.
And in general, what city do you currently live in?
I live in Colgate.
And do you know somebody by the name of Zachariah Anderson?
Yes.
And do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And can you point out where he's seated, what he's wearing?
Today he's wearing a gray suit, blue tie.
Judge, I would just ask the record reflect the accused.
Indicating the accused.
And how do you know Mr. Anderson?
We had a relationship and we have children together.
When did you first meet the defendant?
I first met him in about 2007.
And you indicated you have children together. How many?
We have 3.
And what year was your daughter born?
Our daughter was born in 2008.
And back in 2008, were you residing with the defendant?
I'm speeding it up, just so you know. If it is too fast for you, you can slow it down by hitting this gear icon and hitting playback speed and choosing the playback speed that is more appropriate for you. In order to get through these and to, I'm just someone who consumes my true crime on like 2 speed and like double speed because I like to take it all in quickly. But if you need to slow it down, feel free.
Yes.
And at some point, did you stop residing with the defendant during your relationship?
Yes.
When is the last time by year that you actually lived with the defendant?
2012 is when he moved out.
So since 2012, you've maintained separate residences?
Yes.
Did you continue to be in a romantic relationship, though?
Yes, it was on and off for the next few years. Yes.
And ultimately, what year were your twin boys born?
2015.
And who...
So they ended things in 2012, but they had their boys in 2015. So did they really end things? Did he really move out in 2012? Or is this just Sadie's version of it?
did the children live with primarily throughout the years from 2012 until 2020?
With me.
And where was the defendant living during those years, the best you can recall?
All over the place.
What do you mean by all over the place?
Well, he had a home that was in Mequon, but his job took him all over all over. So he was sometimes in different areas or different states.
And when he would be back in this area, would he continue to reside at that Mequon residence?
Yes.
And then how would he see you and the kids when he was back in this area?
He would come in town for the weekends, or he'd come over on the weekend if he wasn't working. And that's kind of what he would do, is he'd stay overnight at my house with the kids and with us, and then, yeah.
And up until 2020, did he really ever take the kids overnight away from your home?
No, the kids mostly stayed overnight at my house. When he first moved into the house, there were a couple of times where we all stayed there together, but primarily the children were at my house. They had their rooms all set up at my house.
And fast forwarding to 2019, what was the status of your relationship with the defendant romantically during 2019?
It was very tumultuous in 2019. It was not, we weren't we weren't doing well. It was it was a relationship on its way out.
And ultimately, did that relationship end for good at some point in 2019?
Yes, December of 2019.
Now, prior to that, in your on and off relationship with the defendant from 2008 to 2019, had you been actively seeking out other relationships during that 11-year period?
No.
To your knowledge, had the defendant been actively seeking out other relationships during that period?
Yes.
Now, what happened in December?
But she wasn't? I mean, I don't know.
Of 2019 that made this relationship end for good?
I'm going to object that this question is calling for other acts evidence.
It doesn't. Well, I'm going to just wonder what the relevance is.
Well, Judge, one of the many, I think, potential defenses here is that she was stringing him along, so I'm trying to lay the foundation for when the relationship officially ended, so then we can get into when she officially moved on. I don't need the details of...
The question is much broader than that. It
I'll
asks for a
rephrase.
universe of possibilities. And the other thing is, except in those cases where the one of the parties says to the other, get lost, I don't know when a relationship, quote, officially ends.
Right, which she would explain for us, but I will specify better.
All right.
Ultimately, in December of 2019, was there an argument that ended the relationship in your mind?
Yes.
And then from December of 2019 through January of 2020, did you have really any contact with the defendant at all?
No.
And does that include him not seeing the kids?
Correct.
When was then the first time you recall having contact with the defendant after not speaking with him at all in January of 2020?
Sometime in February of 2020.
And what was the nature of that conversation in February of
I don't
2020?
object as far as relevance. It's also outside the charging scope.
What about the relevance?
Well, just the state of mind of all of the parties in terms of motive, jealousy, all of these things about what she understood the relationship to be versus what she had communicated to him, because it then results in what we have accused as of stalking type behavior. So I do believe it's highly relevant and probative in terms of what the relationship was through all the stages up till when we charged the first instance of stalking.
But you qualify your question between what, I'm paraphrasing, but what she thought the relationship was, and then you inquire what she communicated to him, so that answering the first part of the question becomes speculation on his part as to what she's thinking. Am I confusing this more?
Yeah.
Okay. What she was thinking, you say the state of mind of all the parties. Well, there are only two parties, the state and the accused. She is a complaining witness. And if he's going to be accountable for behavior in which he should know her thinking, then it needs to have been communicated to him.
Correct, which is why I'm asking about a meeting they had in February of 2020 regarding the status of their relationship moving forward.
I didn't say that was a problem.
Okay.
Why don't you rephrase your question?
Sure. After communication had been reopened between you and the defendant, did you meet up with him in February of 2020?
Yes, I did.
And what was the nature of the discussion you had with him regarding how you were going to be moving forward together?
So he reached out to me, and I agreed to have a conversation with him, but only outside in my driveway. And so we had a conversation, and in that conversation, I expressed to him that I was done with the relationship, and that I did not see it being repairable at that point, based off of what had happened. So I kind of made it clear, and wanted to kind of figure out, what an agreeable, something agreeable for the kids, like to see the kids, because that's ultimately what he wanted. So I was thinking that was fine to come up with something to do with the kids, but I was done with the relationship. So.
And did you take any affirmative steps to move on or potentially look for a new relationship moving forward?
I did. I kind of just dabbled on Facebook dating.
And did you meet someone named Rosalio Gutierrez Jr. on Facebook dating?
I did.
And approximately when in February of 2020 do you recall connecting with him over that app?
February 13th.
And did you then start exchanging messages with Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes, we started chatting on Facebook, dating app for a little bit, and then we exchanged messengers and started to chat that way.
Since your relationship with the defendant, since I think you said 2007, was this the first new relationship you had ever really attempted at that point?
Yeah, yes.
Now, at some point, did you...
That's the court audio that keeps going in and out because they're trying to change which mic they're picking up their voices in, and it's really annoying, but here we go.
You and Mr. Gutierrez agreed to meet up at his residence on February 29th.
I don't object. There's been a long string of leading questions at this point.
Well, in his in form misleading, but it's I don't think it reaches the level of suggestiveness as to be objectionable. So it's overall.
You can answer.
Can you repeat it again?
Sure. Did you and Mr. Gutierrez arrange to meet up at his house for the first time on February 29th of 2020?
Yes.
Just direct your attention to showing state. You would be then in pink, and Mr. Gutierrez would be in this yellow.
Yes.
Okay. So he says to you, "So don't judge my spot. I haven't cleaned." LOL. You then say back, "Not at all." LOL. And then you ask, "We're just staying at your place, right? Like I can wear comfy clothes, or are we going somewhere?" And he responds, "Be comfy, babe. Maybe somewhere to eat, but just chill night." You then say, "Okay, sweet. I'm leaving soon." And he then texts you 3709 15th Street, apartment 1B, in Kenosha.
Yes.
And then he asks you, "How far a drive is that for you?" Is that accurate?
Correct.
Now, up until this point, had you been to his residence, best you can recall?
No.
So then you indicate, "Forgot my phone, leaving again, 50 minutes. And he says, "LOL, okay." He asks you about a beverage preference. And then moving down here, he ultimately says to you on 2/29 at 6:26 p.m., "Shared my location because GPS doesn't always send to the right place." Do you recall that conversation?
Yes.
And when you met up with him on February 29th, do you recall having any problems getting to his residence?
Yes.
And what was that problem, if you recall?
I went to the wrong building. I went around the GPS took me around to the side of the building. So then when I got there, I called him, and he said he directed me back around where I was supposed to be.
Now, right around that same time frame, did you have some sort of vacation planned with friends?
Yes.
And where were you and your friends?
I'm going to object to this line of questioning, the trip that she's about to talk to. The states, this is all hearsay evidence that what's going to come out. She was in Mexico. She did not observe anything that was here, that was going on here.
Maybe I misunderstand. You're objecting
That this line of questioning is calling for hearsay evidence that they're going to try to get into a situation that occurred here in the state of Wisconsin when Ms. Beecham was away in Mexico. She has no personal knowledge of those other than what was told to her by another individual.
So there's conversation she has with the defendant surrounding this incident. The other individual, Ms. Jekyll, will be present in court and will testify regarding what she witnessed at that same time. But this is giving the context of the state of mind of the defendant when she goes on vacation, and then their communications both via the phone as well as via text message afterwards.
The testimony of the accused, of course, is not hearsay.
Sure.
That's the testimony. The statements attributed to the accused are not hearsay. The statements, which, if there are any that are attributed to someone who, how did the this other person become aware of the content of the discussion?
So the other person was at Ms. Beecham's home when the defendant came in and caused a scene. So she was a first-hand witness to it, and then Ms. Beecham, in response, had to have contact with both the defendant.
And we watched that in the last episode, which was Witness Credibility. We watched Rebecca Jekyll and her testimony. Like I said in the last episode, I gave you all of these witnesses in chronological order as they testified. The only one or two that are out of order, I took Sadie out because I wanted to do a whole day of hers. So Sadie actually did testify before Rebecca Jekyll at this point, and before Owe, their daughter, testified. But other than that, I believe everybody else was before Sadie. So just wanted to clarify in case you guys were confused.
And Ms. Jekyll.
So I'm going to have to make particularized objections to what you claim to be hearsay.
Sure, and it's just, I'll do it as the question goes on, but it is to Rebecca Jekyll. It's not obviously to the defendant.
Okay, go ahead.
So when was this vacation supposed to take place?
First week of March.
And previously, when you talked about having a conversation with the defendant in February regarding the kids, did you mention this vacation to him in any way?
No,
And why not?
because it was none of his business. He didn't need to know. We weren't together, so there was no reason for him to know what I was doing. And he was going to be out of town as well. So, and I had the kids. I had everything planned for kids and childcare all set up. So there wasn't really any reason for him to know.
And at what point during this trip did you
There wasn't any reason for the father of your children to know that you left the country and left your children in the care of somebody else. No reason to tell him.
become aware that something was wrong back home?
I got a call in the middle of the night from a friend of mine stating that Zachariah had entered the home and
Okay, I'm going to object and ask that be
just a
struck.
moment. This sounds
So, Judge, it's not for the truth of the matter asserted. It is literally to get us to the next place. And as stated, it's conversations that then are subsequent to this, which are the same day, essentially, that this has occurred. But then also Ms. Jacob will testify about this, so she will be able to be crossed regarding what she told Ms. Beecham. So it won't just be her understanding of what Ms. Jacob said.
The definition of hearsay is a statement by a person while the person is not on the witness stand under oath and subject to cross-examination, which is offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, which would be the content of what the person told the witness during this phone call. So it sounds kind of hearsay-ish. And as I've discussed previously, I'm not a believer in the Trojan horse that it's being offered to explain why a witness did the next thing or whatever. But that's just in that event, it's irrelevant. So the content of the phone call sounds to me as hearsay. It might not be. The caller. If the caller has personal knowledge, then if the caller is here and subject to cross-examination and under oath, you can admit the evidence that way. But on the other hand, this nocturnal phone call, I would be going in blind now if I overrule the objection to whatever the sources of knowledge the caller had, which may themselves have been hearsay. So
the caller's an eyewitness. The person
say the witness. I don't know what the witness is going to say when she's called. All I know is that someone calls in the middle of the night and gives some information, and if she had started, no, I'm not going to get into that. But the objection is sustained.
To your knowledge, where was the defendant supposed to be out of town while you were in Mexico?
I understood that he was going to be in South Dakota.
And which of your friends did you set up childcare with to watch the kids while you were in Mexico?
My friend Rebecca.
And ultimately, did a situation arise at some point that caused concern where you were contacted about the defendant arriving at your residence?
Yes.
What time of day do you recall receiving that call without telling me what the call was about?
About 3 a.m. I'm not exactly sure on the time, but it was about 2, 3, anywhere between 2 and 3 a.m. In Mexico. It woke me up.
And at that point, the defendant was at your residence?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Ultimately, did you speak to the defendant about this?
Yes. I called him when I was informed that he was in the home. I called him, and he did not answer, and so then I contacted law enforcement.
At any time previous to you leaving for vacation, had you invited the defendant to come over to your home?
No.
Whatever Zach just said, I wish I could read his lips because that's clearly a lie. And let's see his lips again. See if you can read them. Tell me what he says.
I contacted law enforcement.
At any time previous to you leaving for vacation, had you invited the defendant to come over to your home?
No.
Yes. He says yes.
And as best you can recall, what were the days of your trip to Mexico back in 2020?
I believe it was like March 3rd through the 10th or something like that.
Ultimately, were you able to get text communication through to the defendant on March 6th of 2020?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 199. And ask if this is a phone number for the defendant that you recognize was in your phone as Zachariah.
Yes.
So looking at that first message, this at 5:36 p.m. on the 6th of March, did he send you a text that says, "Go do your vacation proper. It's Friday. Probably going to be almost as memorable as Saturday. Travel safe. No coronavirus or herpes if you can help it. Never know what kind of bug you might catch on vacation. Sometimes what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. I don't want the kids to get pink eye, or is the coronavirus deadly?" Is that a text message he sent to you?
Yes.
Then moving down a little bit, so you get a text from him that says, "Since your new somebody is looking to see you as soon as possible, what if I keep the kids Tuesday night as well? Don't want you to have to sneak anyone into the house after sending the kids to bed. Don't want the kids coming downstairs to pee and overhearing any sweet talking. Might mess with them hearing you and the new boo calling each other babe and whatever."
I mean, this sounds like a legitimate concern for a parent. If you are no longer with your partner that you have children with and they start dating someone new, you could be concerned as a parent that, you don't want her to be bringing in just random guys into their lives, and you definitely don't want the kids seeing something happening intimate wise. So I think it's, it's a legitimate concern that I think any parent would have. Any normal human being would have that reaction. I mean, yes, there might be some jealousy within that feeling, but any normal human being is going to be like, I don't want my kid seeing this other guy with you. And especially if it's, naughty time. Adult naughty time. I don't want them seeing that. So yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. And it just corroborates that Zach has been concerned about the well-being of his children this whole time. Not necessarily caring what Sadie's doing, but worried about the children and what they're perceiving.
And then you respond to that with, honestly, babe, first I think it's fucked up that someone is keeping you updated as they somehow think if I were to start dating again, that is a bad thing. Second, why do you care to continue getting updates from said informants? LOL. And third, I don't need your help to find happiness. You had your chance. Many, 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 many. Was that your response to him?
Yes.
And then he responds, I just offered to watch the kids. Don't get mad because people want to give me reliable information when you don't. It just happens to be about the guy you dumped me for, I suppose. There's some curiosity for sure. And then his next message, talking about my last 3 years at AT&T was a downhill slide. I wish I would have made you and the kids come with. 2.5 years after that has been mostly sleep deprived, physical anguish, and crying all alone, dreaming of suicide. Not sure what popped in my back, but every day I can breathe again, and I want to rest. I want the rest of my days to have love and happiness. Is that accurate?
This guy, I mean, it sounds to me, it doesn't sound like he's being overly jealous or condescending or he's not like calling her names or anything. Like, he's being cordial with her and he's being open and upfront, I think, with his feelings about the fact that he misses her, he loves her, he still has he still has a flame for her in his heart. And I think it is breaking him that they're no longer together. That's my honest opinion, especially like that text doesn't sound anything like jealous or crazy, ex obsessive, whatever. It just sounds like he's sad. He's upset that, life doesn't always turn out the way you want it, unfortunately.
Yes.
Did you know him to have back pain at some point during your relationship?
Yes.
And during this time frame, had that gotten better?
Yes, he told me it did.
Then we have another text from later on that same day. The boys said some guy came over to hang the TV. I asked Liv if it was Leo. She said she asked Becky, and Becky couldn't help smiling. I wish she paid as close attention. And you respond with, the boys were all over Tony when he was hanging the TV, and you should probably stop probing our 11-year-old for information. Geez, cut it out. I'll fucking tell you if I'm into someone, good God. And, oh, you were expecting...
But she wasn't telling him. She wasn't telling him at all. She was sneaking around, still calling him Z-Bear, and seeing Rosalio behind his back, and lying about the fact that she was seeing somebody. Like, okay, if you're broken up and you're seeing somebody, who cares? Just admit it. But don't string me along. Tell me you're done, and I can start to heal. You know what I'm saying? Don't keep stringing me along and then not tell me that you're dating somebody else.
Discretion around my babies, our more than impressionable daughter. Fuck no, I want her to know how a man is supposed to treat her, not control her and make her fear him. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then he responds back later on that evening, I won't stalk you. You have told me more than you needed, just putting some thoughts and feelings down. Your goodbye was very abrupt, still sorting myself out. Figured you could just ignore it.
Your goodbye was very abrupt. Did she just suddenly break up with him for no reason or, just out of the blue? I mean, if that's the case, I can totally understand why he's got a lot of questions and feeling still very lost and hurt in this whole scenario. Remember, this is fresh. So she says they were done and whatever, broken up and moved out by 2012, but then they have twins in 2015. And now in 2019, that's when it's done. She's like, I'm calling the police on you because we're having an argument, and he gets some kind of stay away order, but it was just temporary. So that's where it left off at the end of 2019. And then in 2020, she's dating people already by at least February, because that's when we know she was talking to Rosalio already in February. So December, they have the fight. She gets him arrested. And by February, she's talking to Rosalio and still stringing Zach along, by the way. And Zach is like wondering what the F just happened. That's my opinion. And he's really hurting in this, I think. And he wants to protect his kids, and he's seeing different activities out of Sadie that he's not thrilled with, and she's not being mother of the year right now, so he wants to protect his kids, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
We're laughing. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Up until that point, had you told the defendant anything about your new Facebook dating relationship with Mr. Gutierrez?
No.
So you never told him anything about calling Mr. Gutierrez Leo?
No.
And just to be clear, Mr. Gutierrez was not on this Mexican vacation with you?
No.
So we say, but we don't know for sure. I don't really believe anything Sadie says at this point.
Personal life.
No.
And why did you believe that?
Because we were not together. We were not in a relationship. He was not allowed in my house. I was afraid of him, and we were not together.
She was not afraid of him. She was texting him like she was not afraid of him. She was asking him to come over. And why weren't you staying the night? Why didn't you stay the night? I thought you were going to, in her texts. And she invites him over in some texts. She's not scared of him. She's making that crap up now because she wants him, or she wanted him arrested for stalking, and that's what they got him on in order to hold him to finally like pin Rosalio's disappearance on him.
Now, ultimately, when you get back from vacation in Mexico, do you continue seeing Mr. Gutierrez Jr.?
Yes.
And would you describe your relationship as progressing towards something?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 213. I believe you stated you got back from Mexico, you believe the 10th?
Yes.
So were these some text messages between you and, from Rosalio from the 10th of March after you got back from Mexico?
Yes.
And did they include phrases such as, have I told you that when I kissed you, that I knew you were the one for me? And have I told you that I prayed for someone like you to come into my life? Leo that says, I feel like he answered my prayers. Babe, I honestly feel like we have happily ever after potential. Was all accurate?
Yes.
And then ultimately on that same day, later that night, you respond with, you did tell me and I like that?
See, they're getting all like lovey-dovey right after the Mexico trip. So it really does make me wonder if she went with him. I mean, lying on the stand about it, I mean, that's easily provable if she did go with Rosalio. But I don't know. It just seems odd at the timing, too, because she gets back from Mexico and they're all lovey-dovey talking to each other in text messages.
Yes.
And then he says, love, confession time, I'm head over heels for you. Like I totally know you are for me. Like no questions asked, you are for me. And you respond back with, I feel some fantastic things are going to happen with us, and then a heart emoji.
Yep.
Now, up until this point of your relationship, have you really told anyone in your life kind of what's going on with you and this new guy, Rosalio, Gutierrez?
The only one I told was, well, my close friends, so my best friend, Rebecca, other friends that were close to me.
And would that be the same Rebecca Becky that was watching the kids during your vacation?
Yes.
Did you tell anything to your, at that point, 11-year-old daughter regarding this new relationship you were starting?
No, I didn't disclose it.
And why is that?
Because it was a new relationship, and it was kind of new territory for me, so I didn't really want to talk to her about that yet. I didn't feel it was appropriate.
Is your daughter kind of inquisitive?
She is. She's very curious. She was into phones at that time, so also it was a matter of just her not going into phones and things like that. So I knew she was gonna try to find things out if she knew somebody's name or she knew something. So I just kind of.
So her daughter sneaks into her phone, apparently, and reads her text messages, because that's what that just means. And we know that she was also stealing Zenith's phone, her aunt's phone, and lying about it. So we know that, I mean, nothing against her. She's a teen, she's just a kid, but she's probably acting out because all the craziness that is going on between the two of Zach and Sadie. But anyways, so we know that she makes up stories, and she sees that from somewhere. Somebody shows her an example of how to do that, and I'm just saying, sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So February 13th, I just wanted to back up. I've got the timeline in front of me here. February 13th is when Sadie and Rosalio meet, and they're talking about now March. Where is it? Sadie leaves on the 3rd to go to Mexico. By when does she get back? I'm just looking. 6th. No. Rosalio to Sadie on the 10th. Sadie returns from Mexico on the 10th. 8:30 p.m. Rosalio to Sadie, have I told you that when I kissed you, that I knew you were the one for me? So all of a sudden, like, she's back from Mexico and he's saying, when I kissed you. So when did they kiss? She's been gone for over a week, or for a week. So where's that coming from? And have I told you that I prayed for someone like you to come into my life? I feel like he answered my prayers. God answered my prayers. Babe, I honestly feel like we have the happily ever after potential. Yeah. So that's what she's reading through now, are these texts. But it's just odd that it's a month, not even a month later. But she's been in Mexico for a week of that month that they've been talking, and now this. So I don't know. It's just really fishy to me. Maybe she wasn't in Mexico. Maybe she was somewhere else with Rosalio. So maybe she didn't lie when she said I wasn't in Mexico with Rosalio. I was in New Mexico with Rosalio. I don't know.
Kept those things to myself right at the moment.
At some point in March, does your daughter learn the name Leo?
She did.
And how did that happen?
So I picked her up from school, and we were in the car, and on the Bluetooth, the name popped up. So, and it was Leo on the screen. And so then she had asked who Leo was, and I said, oh, it's, a friend of mine. And, she said hi, he said hi or whatnot. And then we just kind of ended the phone call. And I just, explained to her that it was a new friend of mine.
Now,
so she's answering the call and speaking to him while her kids are in the car, for sure. Because she just admitted to them saying hi to one another on the phone. So she answered the call. Everyone in the car, I'm sure, could hear it over the speaker. And, yeah, so she's already talking to Rosalio in front of the kids after less than a month of knowing him.
obviously, there was an incident that happened with the defendant being at your house while you were in Mexico. When you got back from
I
Mexico...
don't object. That question is argumentative.
The formation of the question.
I can rephrase it.
That would be.
After you found out the defendant had been at your home in the early morning hours while you were in Mexico, after you returned, did you set up another meeting with him?
Judge, same objection.
The problem is that the formation of the question imports.
I'll rephrase again.
Thank you.
After getting back from Mexico, did you set up another meeting with the defendant at the chocolate factory?
Yes.
And what is the chocolate factory for those of us that aren't from your area?
It's just a sub shop, like a sub sandwich shop.
And what was the purpose of this meeting at the chocolate factory with the defendant?
At this time, I had papers for working out a schedule for the kids. So I wanted to discuss like an amicable schedule and agreement so that he could see the kids, and that it wouldn't be while I was at home and like it was before. So I just wanted to sit down and come to some kind of an agreement that maybe we could agree on to take to like the courts and just show them that we agreed on the schedule. And so that was my intention of that meeting.
And you indicated that was your intention. What do you mean by that?
My intention was to meet to discuss the children's schedule for the kids and something that we could agree on.
And did the defendant have that same goal in mind, or was he also trying to do other things during
I
that
don't
meeting?
object as far as speculation.
Well, based on his answers and responses, I think.
Well, for starters, it's a leading question.
What did the defendant say during this meeting that was perhaps different than what your intention was in having the meeting?
He wanted to talk about how he wanted to get back together. So it was, he didn't want to discuss that. He wanted to talk about why we...
So sometime in February, we have an unknown date. Zach and Sadie meet up to discuss child visitation schedules, or at least that's what Sadie is saying. That was her goal of the meeting, and now she's saying that Zach was just talking about wanting to get back together. So this is February, and she met Rosalio February 13th.
Why we weren't going to get back together, why I couldn't, he just tried to get back together with me. It was more about that.
And what was your answer to him about wanting to get back together?
I again just kind of iterated that the relationship was over and that it just was past its point. So it was more about the kids at this point. I just wanted to come up with something agreeable for the kids.
And after this meeting, did the defendant finally give up trying to get back together with you?
No object, speculation.
Just saying.
What, if anything, did the defendant do after this meeting towards you that made you believe potentially he wasn't ready to give up on the relationship yet?
He would constantly text me, call me, send me, emails, these kind of woe is me emails, and just trying in every direction to try to get back with me, or just try to, like almost in a harassing way, like just constantly emailing me all hours of the night.
Because he's suffering and he's hurting, so he wants to share his feelings with you. That's harassing you.
Texting all hours, bringing me flowers, just.
Oh no, that's so harassing. Bringing me flowers. How dare you?
And during this time frame, roughly March 16th of 2020, do you recall finding out that your daughter had gone through your phone?
Yes.
And did you, should I show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 214? There's a couple of texts between you and Leo, Rosalio, regarding the fact that you had found that out. 3:16 at 4:27 p.m. Liv got in my phone, LOL, and then he reacted with he laughed at and just saw this text. What did she say? Is that accurate?
Yes.
And how did you know that your daughter had gotten your cell phone?
Because she confronted me about it.
So had she read some of the messages between you and Leo at that point?
She said that she saw a message from Leo to me.
Now, as March progressed, was the contact with the defendant the same that you previously talked about him trying to get back together with you and things like that?
Yes.
I'll show you States 200. Text messages from March 19th at roughly 11:32 in the morning. From the defendant to you. Well, you getting your hair pulled by your new boo tonight and tomorrow? I am not sure what time I will be home later and if I have the kids tomorrow. And you respond with WTF, either help or don't. Is that accurate?
Yes.
What was this conversation about? If you could
I'm not sure. Maybe I asked him to help with the kids or something.
And then later on, at 11:41 that day, he says, "Damn, put the gun down. I got the kids tomorrow and next week." And then he says, "I'm saying maybe I get them in the mornings. You got someone. We can be pals all you want, but I'm dying inside and don't want to be left out in the cold." Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then further down, a little bit further down that day, he indicates to you that he loves you. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then there's a text at 7:45 the next day. "Since you are going to be checking your messages later, and I don't want you to have messages from all your new dudes and not me." And he sent you that message. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then moving on to
Oh no.
March 21st of 2020, a message from him at 5:20 p.m. "You and Leo got date night tonight. What's
He sends me texts that he loves me. Oh no. He's so harassing.
the plan?" Is that a message that you received from him?
Yes.
Had you ever at that point personally told the defendant who Rosalio Gutierrez Jr. was?
No.
So when he knows the name Leo, that's not something you ever shared with him?
No.
Went to some of those text messages you just saw from the defendant. Does he continue to do things to try to get back together with you after that?
I'm going to object as far as speculation.
She can testify as to what her perception of events was, but the jury will keep in mind that she's incorporating her perception, her conclusions, and it's not. She has no way of knowing, obviously, what's in his mind. Go ahead.
Based on your perception of the defendant's words and actions subsequent to some of the texts we've seen from the middle of March, does he continue to try to get back together with you in the following weeks?
Yes.
And does he do that in the same ways you previously described regarding phone calls, text messages, gifts?
Yes.
Does he continue to tell you that he loves you?
Yes.
Horrible.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 202, text messages from March 29th of 2020. At 10:07 p.m., does he send you a text? I don't have any fight for you. I don't have any arguments. I have some questions, some feelings. Good night, Sadie Bear. I love you. Does he send that to you?
Yes.
Then good morning. Have whatever kind of day you want. I love you.
Yes.
Then does he call you? It appears 3 times between noon and 4:30 p.m. On the 30th.
Yes.
And then on the night of the 31st, does he send you a text? And I love you.
Yes.
And in any of these texts, do you respond in kind?
No.
No, but you call him Z-Bear, and you ask him to spend the night. You invite him over.
So moving into April of 2020,
Mixed messages.
have you still, I'm sorry, strike that. Moving into April of 2020, have you chosen to share any information about your new relationship with the defendant?
No.
In conversations with you, does he have information about Mr. Gutierrez that you did not share with him?
Yes.
And what kind of information does he share with you in the early parts of April of 2020 that you did not share with him that he somehow knows about Mr. Gutierrez?
His name, and also he mentioned where he lived.
And during the early parts of April of 2020, based on efforts and deeds by the defendant, is it your perception that he's still trying to get back together with you?
Yes.
And would it be in all the same ways that you previously testified, gifts, phone calls, text messages?
Yes. He would use, and sometimes he'd use 2 different phones to text me on, so it would get kind of confusing. So it would either be like texts, emails, texts on 2 different phones, just a lot of harassing, trying to get back together. Why can't we? Just not letting it go.
That doesn't sound like harassment, sweetie. That sounds like he misses you and loves you and wishes something different from the relationship. Doesn't sound like he's harassing you.
And were you aware that during some of these phone calls between you and him that he was recording you?
No, I did not know at that time.
I'm going to play for you a video recording regarding a telephone call from April 8th of 2020. Yes. Give me a second. 9:04.
No, that's no fucking excuse. It's fine, but you're not giving me the thing. I just want you to confront me about something that isn't fucking together.
I'm not asking for it.
I don't know what you're asking
Stand the
for.
fuck over here. Leaving you your space. I send you a text message. I get a cold fuck off every night.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I say good night to you.
Here, it's hard to hear.
No.
Fuck over here.
It's hard to hear this audio, and when people are yelling at each other, they talk a lot faster, so I'm slowing it down back to normal speed so we can hear the phone call.
I'm trying, but you're not giving me the thing. I just want to keep confronting me about something that isn't fucking there.
I'm not asking for it.
Well, I don't know what you're asking
Stand the
for.
fuck over here. Leaving you your space. I send you a text message. I get a cold fuck off every night.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I say good night to you just the same as you say to me. Is that good enough? Fine, it's not good enough. Is it ever going to be?
No, you don't say I love you. You don't say the same as I say to you. And that's okay. That's okay because I earned it. I know I did.
I'm not trying to not say I love you to you.
I'm trying to play every card I can to say that there's a future there. Every time something happens and I'm like, fuck, dude, you're killing me. You're answering it? You see? You see how you're pushing me away? Dude, I'm fucking dying over here. I'm asking for your time and attention. I'm asking that we come together as a couple and raise our fucking kids.
I don't know that we can right now. I don't know you're in that space right now with you. I'm telling you that. It's not any different right now. You want a day or 2 to make a change? I don't see it making a change in a day or 2. It's just don't, I just see it.
It's not a day, it's a month now. Don't get I love you. It's not a month now. It's 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks. It's telling me I love you every day. It's bringing me close. It's trying to get...
I understand.
No,
I understand what you're trying to do. I get it, and I'm not appreciating it. I see it. I understand. It's not that. It doesn't just flip the switch.
I'm not asking for to flip the switch. I'm asking for some reciprocity. Not the understanding.
Stopping at 10:57.
If nothing else, the one thing I learned from that recording is that she is stringing him along. She's absolutely stringing him along. That didn't help the prosecution as much as they think it does.
So in that conversation, did you recognize the two voices that you heard?
Yes,
And who are those two voices?
that's Zachariah and myself.
And did you know that that was being recorded?
No.
Oh well.
And when you indicate that you perceived he was trying to get back together with you, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And did you have any interest in getting back together with him?
No.
And how would you explain that to him?
But you didn't tell him that. Those were not the words coming out of your mouth. You were still acting like you wanted to be with him, and you're like, I'm not trying not to say I love you. What kind of answer is that? Like, what?
When he would bring this up time and time again?
I would just try to explain to him that, that I still, cared about him, as the father of my kids, and that I wanted things to be, as civil and amicable as possible, but that we just couldn't be in a relationship. It was just too toxic. It was too. I just kept reiterating that to him that, I didn't want it to be ugly. I just wanted it to be done.
We never see that in a text. We never see that in an email. I feel like from the texts and what the recording we just heard said, it seems like she really was stringing him along, not telling him that it was over. She was trying to keep Zach on her hook, and also get Rosalio, I guess. I don't know.
Now, in this time frame, are you still seeing, this would have been April 8th of 2020, are you still seeing Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
And is that relationship progressing towards something in your opinion?
Yes.
Three months they knew each other.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as dates 2/15. Text messages from April 17th of 2020 between you and Mr. Gutierrez.
Sorry, Counsel, the date was?
April 17th, 2020. Is this text read from, is now on your phone as Junior? Is that accurate?
Yes.
And why is he now on your phone as Junior when before it was Leo?
Because he started harassing me about Leo, and my daughter knew that.
So, sorry, when you say he started harassing you, who do you mean?
Zach started harassing me using Leo, and I kind of started having a feeling that that my daughter was giving him information from my phone, and she knew that his name was in my phone as Leo, so I changed it so that she wouldn't be able to find it as easy and report it back.
So,
She changed
April
it.
17th, he says, babe, I miss you, and you respond back, I miss you too, I think I'm kind of falling for you, Rosalio, and then he loves that message. Is that all accurate?
Yes.
And at this point of April of 2020, how often are you able to go see Mr. Gutierrez?
We tried to see each other like every other weekend or a couple times a week.
And have you involved your kids in any of those meetings in any way?
No.
So when you go see Mr. Gutierrez, who would potentially be watching your children?
So at this point, we had, Zach was very adamant about seeing the kids and having them stay at his house now. So I allowed kind of to let him do that, and we didn't have a schedule.
She allowed
so
it.
It was too hard to kind of nail him down with a schedule because he would just want them whenever. So I kind of worked with that. So it was whenever he wanted the kids for a couple of days, and then he would usually have them, and then I would go and hang out with Rosalio.
During April of 2020, would the defendant make comments to you about you not being home at night?
So there were a few times where I would stay over at Rosalio's, and then I would get like text messages from Zach saying, "Oh, I see your car's in the driveway," or "You didn't come home last night," or yeah, things like that.
Approaching with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 203, text messages between you and the defendant from April 21st. Now I see the first one we're talking about April 21st at 9:58 p.m. appears to be a series of dots from the defendant. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then you respond back about an hour and 15 minutes later with a series of dots?
Yes.
Is there a reason? Is there some meaning to the dots, or is that just how he texted you that day?
I just responded to what he texted.
Now, looking down, now we're a couple hours later, now 1:43 in the morning, a text from him that says, "I am sure he is a great guy." Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then roughly 6.5 hours later at 8:15, He tells you, we stopped by to grab warmer clothes for heading to the lake house. Looks like you didn't make it home, ... again. And you responded back, I'm about to be in a conference call in a minute. In short, I'm tired of all your accusations about where I am. You're really overly paranoid. And then you tell him, I'm just at Becky's, you fool, enough. And then he says, it wasn't an accusation.
But she's not at Becky's. We know she's with Rosalio. She's lying to him. And he has a right to kind of know what the mother of his children are doing. I mean, when it comes to her relationship with Rosalio or whatever, if they're broken up and whatnot, that's fine. But it seems like she's never actually said, I'm completely 100% done with you. You need to move on. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's been stringing him along the whole time, trying to keep him in her life and trying to go off and do her own thing and have some freedoms, even though she might have the kids. She might ignore the fact that she's got the kids and do things that were not as responsible as she once was.
It was an observation. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now, in terms of that day, did you talk to the defendant about what your plans were after you dropped the kids off? Did you give him a play-by-play of what you'd be doing that night?
No.
And why not?
Because it wasn't any of his business. I wasn't in a relationship with him, so he didn't need to know what I was doing and where I was coming and going.
April 25th. What day is your daughter's birthday?
April 25th.
And what was the plan between you and the defendant regarding who would have the kids for that special day for your daughter?
So we had come to an agreement that we would have separate birthday parties for her birthday.
And why is that?
Because I was not allowing Zach in my house. I was afraid of him, and I had suspicions that...
Since when? They had, I think it was the weekend before this, Zach and Sadie, or there was some family thing going on with Zach's family, and Sadie brought the kids, and I think it was like a birthday party or something. She brought the kids, she was there, she was cordial with Zach, like no problems. How is she saying she's afraid of this guy if she's going to family events with him and her kids and still calling him Z-Bear?
He's keeping tabs on me, so I just wanted to keep him as far away from me in that situation. So we agreed to have birthday parties at his house, one at his house and one at mine. He had bought our daughter a skateboard, and he wanted to present the skateboard to our daughter as a family. And so I agreed to meet them at his house to do that. And so the plan was that my daughter and the kids would stay at his house the night before her birthday. So then I could decorate the house and get everything else set up for her birthday party after his house. So the plan was then the next morning I would go to his house, meet the kids there, present the birthday present to Olivia, or to our daughter, and then take the kids back home with me, and then we would have our birthday party there without him.
And on the night of the 24th, did the defendant take the kids to his house as planned?
Yes, he did.
And did you then have a company come to your house that night?
Yes, I invited Rosalio to come over.
And was he going to help you decorate for the birthday party?
Yes, we eat dinner and he helped me decorate.
And did Mr. Gutierrez spend the night that night?
Yes.
And did something happen in the early morning hours that caused you concern in terms of hearing something?
Yes, so we were getting ready to retire, go to bed. I don't know, it was like 2:30 in the morning. We just laid down, and then I heard the doorbell ring. And I was kind of like, what's that? And I got up, and we both got up and went to the door and I didn't see anything or anybody. So then I went to the window. I had like a bay window that was outside of my bedroom, and I kind of opened up the blinds and peeked out. And as I peeked out, I saw a black car going past the road right in front of the house.
How would she have seen him? Like, she would have had to go from her, I'm assuming her front door is like her living room or whatever. She'd have to go back from the living room or the main room back into her bedroom and see Zach pull out in time. I don't think this is... I see problems in her description.
Just assumed, knowing that Zach had a black car, that could have possibly been him. So my thought was that, oh my goodness, he was here at the house and rang the doorbell or something.
And you indicated, obviously, Mr. Gutierrez was there that night. Was the plan for him to be at the party the next day?
No. Yeah, he was there that night. I kind of briefly told him I thought that my ex had been at the house. And so then that morning, he went out to his truck and he came back in and he was like, hey, did I go in my truck last night? It's like, no. And he's like, well, everything's all messed up in my car. And
He asked her, did I go in my truck last night? What? Oh, okay.
things are like outside of my glove box and they're laying on my console. And he's like, I think he may have gotten in my car last night. I'm like, oh boy. So, we just kind of parted our ways. I said, I have to go to this birthday party. And we agreed to talk later.
I'm just going to show you what's on State's Exhibit 1, photograph number 1. Do you remember, is this the truck that Mr. Gutierrez was driving or had driven to your house that night that was gone through, in his words?
Yes.
And is that with license plate? Looks like Colorado BAZT26?
Yeah, Colorado plates.
Now, you had talked about what the plan was supposed to be for your daughter's birthday. What ended up actually happening on the 25th after the doorbell incident early that morning?
I went to his house and had the get together. And Zachariah's sister surprisingly came into town unexpectedly to surprise her daughter. Her daughter was very happy about that, and she was not very happy with me. She refused to hug me or kiss me that day. She didn't talk to me very much. I kind of had a feeling something was off, and that maybe she knew that Rosalio came over last night, but I didn't know how. So it was kind of awkward. But then we were getting ready to leave, and
if your daughter is mad at you because you're dating somebody else, that's your own problem. That's on you. That's not Zach's fault or whatever. I mean, at this point, you'd been hiding it. You'd been keeping it from Zach, but your daughter knew about your friend Leo, and she was asking questions. She wanted to know what was going on. So if she was asking Zach, hey, what's mom doing? Why, and being angry, because from what I understand, OA was being very angry with Zach for dating his new girlfriend, Christine Rumsberg, where this whole time Sadie was lying about seeing Rosalio behind Zach's back. So there's that. So it was, my impression is that he went to show her that someone was, or that she was also seeing someone. But I don't know all the specifics. I don't think that the way that it is described by OA and Sadie is accurate. There's some story in between there. It's not all, Zach's this monster type person.
our daughter asked if her aunt and everybody could come over to our house. So I had agreed with the caveat that they would all stay outside and hang out on the deck, because I, again, did not want Zach in the house, and especially after having this feeling that my daughter was hating me and it was her birthday, and it was just also weird. So like I said, I agreed to let everybody kind of come back to the house and hang outside. We opened presents, had cake and everything, and then our daughter wanted to stay over at her aunt's house. So I agreed, said that was fine. And then, so as everybody was leaving, Zachariah wanted to stay and talk to me. And I said, well, can we talk with your family here? And he's like, no, they can go. And I said, no, I want to talk with your family here. And so he confronted me kind of at the door and said, I had this premonition that you were with somebody else last night, and you were wearing, this pink tank top, and you were listening to this song, and I know what song you were listening to, and come on, tell me, and just harassing me and badgering me about, this premonition that he had, and I have these when I break up with people, and that, and I'm like, I don't know, you must have been here last night. The only way you would have known any of this. He's like, no, and then we got into some kind of a back and forth about it, and he started walking away, and as he was walking away, he was like, yeah, his name is, and he just rattled off his name, his full name, and yelled it at me and said, he's Mexican, and just rattled off things he should not have known. And so then I said, you had to have been here. And he didn't tell me until he finally kind of came close to me and said, yeah, I was. I needed to know. And yeah, that was kind of the conversation.
I'm going to approach you with what's been marked as
I think, I don't know. I just feel like she's so unreliable, and this is just direct examination. We haven't even gone to cross yet.
It's Exhibit 51 and 52. Can you just tell me what these are?
Pictures of the inside of my house, birthday party with the decorations and my kids.
I would ask to publish these to the jury without using the envelope given the minors.
Can I see them first?
Oh, absolutely. 51 and 52.
So we don't see them. Skip forward a little bit here.
And you said, no, you didn't, you're lying. And he says, well, I am paraphrasing, not lying. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Discuss the hour and 45.
I think, unless your question, we
No,
right?
unfortunately, Judge, I'm not.
Let's take a break. Please don't talk about the case during the break. I'm going to try to keep it down to 10 minutes, but
Are they going to talk? No. Okay, good. So let's skip ahead.
No, it is okay. If it is okay, then you go figure that shit out.
You kicked me to the curb saying you got what did I do?
To the fucking curb. I told you how I felt. I was fucking honest about it. You don't want to fucking do it. You want to hear it a different way. I don't know what he told you.
No, you said give you some space. Now you got dudes coming over to spend the night, okay? So
Give me some space to do what the fuck I want to do in my own time.
yeah, whatever you want to do does not mean
That does not mean that you get to decide who I fucking hang out with or that it's wrong that I do or I
no.
don't.
I'm not saying wrong. I'm not saying wrong.
And
Sadie, I think
but no, really sorry, but talking, no.
you need to get.
All right, cut off.
Would that be accurate?
Sorry, just for record.
Yes.
I have the timestamp of when that ended.
Apologies, counsel, 3:38. And why were you that angry during that phone call?
Because he wouldn't stop. I asked and had been as honest about my feelings and that there was no chance for a relationship, and he just would constantly try to have these kinds of conversations with me.
That's not what it sounded like, though. It sounded like she wasn't, again, she was being wishy-washy about her relationship with Zach and not giving him any kind of definitive answer saying, leave me alone, I'm done with you. She's never freaking said that to him. You can tell by the way that he's acting, or by the way that he's questioning her. Like, why you have guys sleeping over? You said you needed space. You didn't say you were going to be having guys sleeping over in the bed that we used to sleep in together.
And that night, on the night of the 25th, did you have some subsequent conversations with your daughter regarding some of these things at all?
Yes. After Zach told me that he was at my house the night before, that he did look in the window and he did take a picture, I then was curious because obviously my kids were at the house with him. So I asked our daughter if she knew if Dad had left or kind of what had happened, and she told me that he did. And that he came to the house, that she knew he came to the house. And I asked her how she knew, and she said, well, Dad showed me a picture, and you were there with somebody else, and she began to tell me some details about the night as well, that she shouldn't have known either. And I asked her how she knew that, and she said that she had seen a video or a picture.
No.
What details? Be specific, Sadie. What details did she say?
The night of the 25th, she was staying...
Is it something that you could have fed to her? Something that potentially could have been told to her, and later on, after all these years of not having Zach being an influence in her life, but only Sadie, she's just repeating things that Sadie says?
somewhere else, is that accurate?
She was on the night of the 25th. She was at her aunt's house. Well, she was at her uncle's house, spending time with her aunt. Yeah.
And did you then get the kids back the 26th?
Correct.
And did you have more in-depth discussions with your daughter regarding what had occurred or what she knew of what had occurred?
Yes.
And did you share some of that information with Mr. Gutierrez via text message on April 26th?
I did.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 218.
I want to get closer to when Rosalio goes missing and get her testimony on that. Let me see where that is, if I can find it. Who's questioning her here? Okay, yeah, that's Burswell, I think. So let's skip forward.
At 2:11 p.m., does he text you, "Not much is going to hurt worse than watching someone go to bed with the person you love and listen to them explore their space with the lights out"? And did you respond back with, "Shut up, you didn't hear anything, you assume. No one was exploring anything but the other side of our eyelids"? "Stop assuming, you're just slipping down the rabbit hole of your imagination." And he responds back with, "Yeah, goddamn imagination. None of that is any of my business though anyways." Is that all accurate?
Yes.
Is that what you meant by further texts that you felt were harassing?
Yes.
I don't see how that's harassing, but okay.
My so-and-so to do this for.
Skip. Okay, so now we're on cross.
A friend request from this girl named Candace, and she's saying that we met last summer, and I don't know who she is, and I recognize the name because she's a mutual friend of Zachariah and myself, and so I told Rosalio not to accept the friend request, and that it was probably in an attempt to.
We don't object as far as speculation to this witness answering a no.
Now, during the same time frame, did you have a conversation with the defendant where he brings up Mr. Gutierrez?
Sorry, we're still on direct. I thought it went to cross because I saw Nicole, but we're still talking about all these stupid text messages. Let's try to get to let me see if I have a different link here. We'll just go to cross. I wanted to see the part where she talks about Rosalio finding him, but it's not coming out. Ooh.
Could you please state your name for the record and spelling?
Sadie Beecham, Sadiebeacham.
Okay, so that's.
Are you currently employed?
Yes.
And how are you employed?
That was the first link. It didn't take me to the second link. Hold on, sorry. I didn't want to open that window. There we go. So I believe we're on the same day, and cross starts after lunchish. Okay, but
Testified on direct examination that from approximately 2007 to 2019, you and Mr. Anderson were in an on and off again relationship.
Yes.
And during that period of time, you had mentioned there were times where Mr. Anderson had not been residing in the state of Wisconsin.
Correct.
And during those times, were you and him together?
There was only one time that he lived outside of Wisconsin.
And when was that?
That was 2016.
sorry,
Not responding anymore seemed to be the best.
So that was May 13th at roughly, ultimately 3 o'clock in the morning, roughly.
Okay,
So
this is what I wanted to get to.
Secure child care, so you.
Sorry, this is what I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to May when she explains when she goes to Rosalio's apartment and she's not hearing from him. So why is she so worried after 24 hours? But anyways.
You could go see Mr. Gutierrez.
Yes.
And did you use the defendant for that child care or someone else, if you recall?
I believe that time was someone else.
And did you make the defendant aware of what your plans were for that night?
No.
And why did you not make him aware of what your plans were for that night?
He didn't need to know. We weren't together. There's no reason for him to.
So I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 209 from the flip phone. And I'm going to show you these your children. So had you communicated in some other way to him that you were not going to be watching the kids that night?
No.
Then at 9:36 p.m., is this okay for right now, or is there something else you want to watch? Question mark. When you received that at 9:36 p.m., did you actually see it right away?
I did.
And does that cause you? Did that text message cause you concern based on anything that was happening at that time down in Mr. Gutierrez's apartment?
That night, I went down to meet Rosalio, and we had plans to go get a bite to eat. So we went to get like a food truck, and we got some tacos and went back to his house. And we had gotten there, probably about 9, a little after 9. And we finished eating, and he was getting ready to go take a shower. And he said, "Do you want me to just leave this on, or do you want me? Do you want to watch this, or do you want to watch something else?" He literally said the same thing. And I said, "This is fine." And then while he was in the shower, I got this text message that came through.
But she just said that she got it right away and read it right away. She's contradicting herself or lying. I don't know. She's misrepresenting because she's contradicting herself.
So the question, is this okay for right now, or is there something else you want to watch? Is something Mr. Gutierrez had just said to you?
Correct.
Now, ultimately, you wait a couple of hours to respond, and you say, WTF, are you talking about, you're texting the wrong person again. You then follow that up with an hour later, please stop following me, and you're going too far, Zach. What did you mean about the please stop following me portion of this message?
I was pretty freaked out, the fact that I got a text message saying exactly what Rosalio just said to me. So I assumed the only way that he would have known that or been able to hear that was if he was there. So I assumed that he had followed me.
And then, did that scare you?
Absolutely.
First of all, how would she even know that that's what it was? Because she was, what'd she say? She was in the bathroom or whatever? Shower? Who was in the shower? Someone was, I don't know. She said something about being in the bathroom and the text and blah, blah, blah. So she first says she saw it right away and it freaked her out. And then she says she saw it after whatever shower or bathroom. And then it, yeah, I don't know. Does it not make sense to you guys? So that's what I was going to say, is that how would she even know if she didn't get it right away? If she didn't see the text right away, how would she even know that that's what it was? I would look at that and be like, what? Like, I wouldn't know that Rosalio just said that, or had said that, a half hour ago or whatever, whenever she does get it, because I don't think she got it right away. So how would you even know? I think, because Zach then says, like, sorry, wrong person or whatever. So he could have been meaning to say that to Berg or something, to somebody, and it accidentally went to Sadie or something. I mean, there's other explanations. It doesn't necessarily mean, because he said something out of context to you, doesn't mean that he was listening in on your conversation with Rosalio.
And why did that scare you?
Well, I think knowing that anybody's following you is pretty scary, especially when you're getting a lot of information about behavior that's scary, that's tracking. And
Mr. Gutierrez says to you, so now I have to lock my shit up before I bugs my house. Is that accurate?
yeah.
And then says, babe, I'm really getting annoyed with this man. And you say, fuck, I know, I'm sorry. He's trying to make it hard for us. He wants you to be fed up enough to walk away from me. Is that all accurate?
Yes.
And why do you think that what made you feel that way regarding this whole situation?
I feel like he not only was stalking me, or he not only was harassing me, but he started doing things to him, and that was equally scary.
On May 14th, does the defendant send you further messages that you find to be, or I guess that were regarding meeting Junior?
So he was very condescending in his text messages, very passive aggressive all the time. So he would always be accused of.
And she's not on the stand right now, very passive aggressive, and I don't know, she's kind of irritating me. All right, here, let's go a few minutes ahead. I want to get to the day Rosalio disappears, finally.
So you did not spend the night that night?
I did not.
Now, when you dropped your children off with the defendant that day, did you tell him any sort of plans you had for that night?
No, I didn't have plans really that night.
Okay, I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 198, a text message from the defendant's Motorola G6 phone.
We're still talking about the defendant. What about the
There
victim?
on Tuesday morning.
All right, let's break at this time, about 10 to 15 minutes. Please don't talk about the case during the break.
All right, let's back up just a minute so I can hear what the question is. Sorry, I wish I had the
Monday the
timestamp for this.
18th, at some point, did you realize that you hadn't really heard from...
Object, it's leading.
I'll rephrase.
All right, go ahead.
Based on the... Did you hear from Mr. Gutierrez at all on Monday, May 18th?
No. On the 17th, I got the text message from him, and I felt that it was... he would text me every night before he'd go to bed, and it didn't matter like what time it was. So I didn't get any like good night text from him, and then the next day I didn't get a good morning text from him. That would have been the 18th. So I found that to be kind of odd that he hadn't texted me or communicated with me at all after he had said that he would text me when he got back or when he got home.
So you not hearing from him you consider to be unusual?
Yes. Like I said, he'd text me literally every morning and every night without fail.
I'm approaching with states 193. .36 p.m. was okay, and then on the 18th at about 12:11 p.m. did you text him, hey you, another rainy day, hope your day is going well?
Yes.
And then he did respond to that, so you sent him some sort of emojis at 2:34, is that accurate?
Yes.
And he didn't respond to that, so you attempted to call him at 5:21 p.m.?
Yes.
And what, if anything, happened with that call?
It went right to voicemail.
Now, in your several-month relationship with Mr. Gutierrez, was that unusual?
Yes.
So at 5:27, do you then send a text, babe, everything okay? Haven't heard from you all day. Just let me know you're okay.
Yes.
And then he doesn't respond to that. So at 7 p.m., do you try to call him again?
Yes.
And what happens when you call him at 7 p.m.?
It goes to voicemail.
And at 7:42 p.m., do you attempt a Facebook call between your Facebook profile and his?
Yes.
And what, if anything, happens when you attempt that?
I get no answer.
Then will now be Tuesday, May 19th at 7:32 p.m. Do you attempt another Facebook call from you to him?
Yes, this was Tuesday morning.
And obviously that was not picked up either?
Correct.
And then at 8:17 a.m., do you attempt to call his cell phone again?
Yes.
And is that picked up or is that voicemail again?
Voicemail.
And then on 5:19 at 10:20 a.m., do you attempt to call him again?
Yes.
And does that go straight to voicemail?
Yes.
Now after that happens at 10:20 a.m. on the 19th, what do you elect to do moving forward regarding Mr. Harris?
Well, the 18th, I was pretty concerned because I had not heard from him at all. And so I wasn't really sure. I had a lot of things kind of going through my head about why he wasn't. I thought maybe he got into an accident. I thought maybe he left his phone somewhere, just kind of all the normal things that you would think is, is this person okay? What's going on? I knew he had kids that he loved and cared about, so it was odd that his phone just was off and that he wasn't answering or responding at all. So that Monday, I was pretty concerned. I tried to reach out a few times throughout the day. Of course, I have little kids, and so they were at daycare, so I couldn't just, leave them, without somebody. So I kind of gathered my thoughts together and thought, okay, well, if I don't hear from him, then, try to maybe reach out to friends or something and just see if everything's okay. And if I don't hear from him, I kind of just decided I'm just going to go there and see what's going on. So that morning, I dropped the kids off at daycare, and I attempted to call him on my way down. And I was just kind of thinking, like, is he sick? Is he not feeling well? Maybe he just doesn't want to, like, maybe he just wants to be left alone, or maybe he's ghosting me. Maybe he's really done. I don't know. So I just went down there on Tuesday morning.
If you had the thought that he was ghosting you, would you drive there to his house? I wouldn't. I'd be like, fuck this guy. He's ghosting me, whatever. Screw him. You know what I mean? Like, why is she all of a sudden worried that there's something wrong with him? I don't know. They didn't have this, like, great connection that she's acting like they did, because he was dating multiple women, and I think there's a little egg on Sadie's face now that she knows that. But she's doubling down on, they were so close, and he'd text me every day, and morning, noon, and night, and yeah, this was so odd for him not to talk to me. How does she know?
All right, let's break at this time.
All right.
About 10 to 15 minutes. Please don't talk about the case during the break.
We got a break going on. Let's get back to it.
I was on the phone with my friend at the time, and I called for him through the screen. The blinds were closed, so I couldn't exactly.
Let me back up a little bit.
And I was not able to get a hold of any of his friends.
And so did you drive to that location?
I did.
And when you arrived, what, if anything, did you notice first?
I pulled up. I noticed that both of his vehicles were there. His both vehicles were there. His patio door was open, like the screen was closed, door was open, and I could tell from the parking lot. So I pulled up, and
where did you proceed to?
so I kind of did a little self-talk in the car, and then I walked up to the screen door and noticed that, like I said, the glass door wasn't all the way closed. So I walked up. I believe I was on the phone with my friend at the time, and I called for him through the screen. The blinds were closed, so I couldn't exactly see inside directly, but I could tell that the screen was open, so I figured somebody would hear me if I would call through the screen. So I called his name a few times, and he didn't answer. So then I decided to go around into the main door to go to that door.
And when you went into the main door, is there a locked door to get there, or is that an unlocked door?
No, it's unlocked, so you can just go into the main door, and his apartment was to the right. So I proceeded to walk up to the door, and I knocked. And as I walked up to the door, I noticed something on the wall by the door frame and the door where it connected. I noticed like something brownish, and I just kind of thought, my first thought was it looked like soy sauce, and I'm like, we didn't have what it looked like something was thrown on the wall there, and it wasn't there before. So I was kind of like, what is that? And then, like I said, I knocked on the door.
This guy you're missing, this guy that you've been dating supposedly is missing. You're so worried about him. You get to his place. His patio door is open, with the screen door open, or closed, but the main door open. And then you go in and you think it's soy sauce? Okay.
Door, didn't get any answer. And then I tried to open the door and it was locked. And then I went to go knock again. And when I went to go knock on the door, I saw like brown dots. He has a red door, a dark red door, and I could see like the brown dots all over the door. I got a very sick feeling. I then decided to walk back outside and go to the main door again. And I remember being very afraid. I remember I being on the phone with my friend and her saying,
I feel like she's struggling to remember what happened that morning.
You know, just open the door. Just open the door and go in and see if he's there. And I said okay, and I opened the screen and I pushed the blinds aside, and I immediately saw red blood, like just a lot of brownish, reddish blood on the floor, and the apartment looked different. It was, it looked different. It looked like furniture had been moved and strategically placed somewhere else. It did not look the way that it looked the night before, and I could tell something was missing, and I couldn't put my finger.
She says it does not look like it did the night before. She wasn't there the night before. The night before was the 18th. The night before that was the 17th. So, and she wasn't there the 17th. Remember, she was there the 16th, that Saturday night. So did she just slip and like reveal that maybe she was there at the scene of the crime the night before? I don't know. But she said it didn't look like the night before. She hadn't been there for, 2-3 nights. So, okay.
Finger on it immediately, and then I then realized that it was the rug that was missing, and I freaked. I called his name, and then I remember my friend saying you have to call 911, and I called 911, and they came, and then I never went into the apartment, and then they came and they did their sweep, and I told them that I just told them what I knew.
You talked about kind of the staining on the carpeting, and so the last time that you had been present at the apartment before the 19th when you found that scene was the 16th, is that accurate?
Yes.
And all of that was different from the 16th?
Yes.
And did you then stay on scene after you called 911?
I did. I remember, like I said, I remember not knowing that something was missing and I couldn't put my finger on it, so when I finally realized it, I was kind of talking through and...
I feel like she's nervous through this part. She's not, like, it's not coming, the words aren't coming flowing in this particular line of questioning. I feel like she's struggling with her words here.
I let the officer know, like, hey, this is missing. And then he said, yep, we'll go and do all that. I then went to my car and...
We'll go and do all that. What? The cop says, yeah, we'll go and do all that after you just said he's missing? That doesn't even make sense. She's just rambling. I feel like this is word salad now.
I believe I may have made some phone calls. I may have called my friend, may have called daycare, and trying to just get a handle on where the kids were. I was pretty freaked out at the time. I remember an officer coming up to the window and saying...
she just dropped the kids off at daycare, and then she's calling daycare?
Do you know of anybody or do you know of anyone who would want to hurt him? And I said, no, I don't know. I said, but I did say that my daughter had been telling me about some pretty disturbing things that my ex was doing, and I had concerns that he was tracking me, and that I had reached out to law enforcement to express my concerns, and nothing had happened, and that maybe there was something there. And the officers asked if my daughter would be willing to come down and talk about what she knew.
You indicated that after you found the scene and called 911 that one of the calls you made was to daycare. Why were you calling daycare at that moment? What was going through your mind?
At this point, I had concerns that possibly Zach had done something and was going to go after the kids. I don't know. I was just afraid. I just wanted to make sure my kids were safe, and I was in Kenosha and I wasn't anywhere near them. So I wanted to alert daycare to let them know that, which they already were on alert because of our past. So they knew to call me if Zach ever showed up at daycare without me knowing. So I just called to make sure that they knew what was happening, and that if he did show up, that they would call me and let me know right away.
Now, you indicated officers or detectives asked you about would your daughter be willing to come down to talk to them. Did you make that happen?
I told them that I would go home and talk to her and ask her if she would be willing to come down and talk to them. I only knew what she told me, so the only information I had was what she told me. So
All right, I'm going to skip forward now to cross-examination, and Nicole's going to rip apart some of these text messages here. Come on.
I love the sun. Receiving a message from Mr. Gutierrez on March 3rd, 2020. I love the sun.
Okay.
And then there was a conversation where Mr. Gutierrez sent you a text through Messenger that says you need to get a calendar and start tracking every time he calls and attempts to spend time with the kids. He might buy something, etc. It will become very helpful. Maybe even try to backtrack as much as you can and track it. Do you know who Mr. Gutierrez was referring to, if you know, when he said he?
He was talking about Zach.
And this is based on a conversation that you must have had with him about issues you had with Mr. Anderson.
I explained to him that I was very afraid that he was tracking me, and that he was also trying to take the kids.
Back in March of 2020?
Correct.
Okay. And then you responded, or previous to that, he had messaged you, full custody might be hard unless you have a paper trail of situations where it shows he is unfit. You can get primary placement. They will grant him visitation rights every other weekend, but from what it sounds like, he won't follow through with. Keep a paper trail of it, then down the road you can go for full custody. It will also get the ball rolling for child support. And you said, I will, and yes, it might be hard, but I'm going to try. And then there's the message we just read, correct?
Yep.
And then you said, I have some things already documented, especially from the last incident. And then anyway, ... correct?
Correct.
Then Mr. Gutierrez responded to you that same day, 7:30 a.m. Babe, I can stake out by your house tonight like a detective, LOL. And you said, oh my God, you're so sweet. He said, but seriously, I don't have the kids tonight. To which you said, no, he can't come back to or he'll get arrested. The cops told my friend to call back if he comes back, right?
Correct.
And then he said, or option B is ... well, I do know people.
Okay.
You received that message from him?
Yeah.
And then you responded back on March 5th, 2020, oh, I definitely thought about a plan B, LOL. Shouldn't be this hard, and I'm so mad he doesn't care what it does to the kids. Correct?
Correct.
Mr. Gutierrez responded, that's why plan B might work, just needs a little reminder.
Okay.
So on March 5th, 2020, you're already having conversations with Mr. Gutierrez about how you need to plan something against Mr. Anderson, correct?
No.
That's not what we discussed.
No,
You weren't talking about a plan A or a plan B.
I was not talking about a plan, anything.
You weren't talking about how you wanted to get full custody of the kids.
Yes.
And that you were going to have documentation that would be enough to get custody of those kids.
No, he was giving me advice on that.
I'm going to show you Defendant's Exhibit 259 again, where when you guys are talking about what you should do to get custody, you say, I will. And yes, it might be hard, but I'm going to try. So when you said, I will, and he's talking about keeping a paper trail, are you saying you will to be keeping a paper trail or something else?
I'm having conversation with him. I'm basically just saying, yeah, okay, I will. Like, sounds like good advice from somebody who may have been through this before or who obviously cares enough about me to help me, protect my children.
But you've only been talking to him for 5 days at this point, correct?
No. March 5th. I've been talking to him for a couple weeks already.
So what day in February did you start talking to him?
The 13th.
Okay. So you think by May 5th, and you only met him once prior to having this conversation, correct?
I don't know about think, but I know. So
Sorry, what was that?
I said I don't know what I think, but I know that he was concerned and he was expressing his concern to me.
Sorry,
That's what you saw in the text, his concern.
That didn't really answer my question. Prior to May 5th,
Okay.
or March 5th, 2020, you had only met Mr. Gutierrez one time, correct?
No, twice.
So you talked about February 29th, where you went to his house. You then go to Mexico. When did you meet him prior?
We met earlier. We met another time before that you guys don't have a record of. Yes, I don't know.
Well, on direct, do you remember saying that the first time that you met him was when you went to his apartment?
That was the first time I went to his apartment. Yes, the first time we met outside we met at a restaurant. We met somewhere else. The very first time that we met. The first time I went to his house was the 29th. That's correct.
So after knowing the guy from February 13th to March 5th, 2020, you already believe that he cares about you deeply enough to be concerned about you.
He cared enough to have the conversation with me. He obviously picked up that I was concerned and that I was scared. I think a good man does that.
So going back to, at this point in March of 2020, you're already saying you're going to be documenting things in order to get custody of your children.
I did not say I was going to be documenting things. I replied with, I will. You can infer whatever you'd like from that, but I was not specific as to what I will be doing.
So you talked then...
And she's not answering the question because Nicole already asked her, what did that mean? And she's like, I don't know. I was just having a conversation with him. She's refusing to answer questions.
After you come back that Mr. Anderson around this time frame, and when I say time frame, I'm talking about around March 3rd, 2022, up about March 16th. So let's just take those first 2 weeks of March of 2020. That Mr. Anderson would constantly text, email, and call you, correct?
Did I tell...
That was on direct examination.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the state had also asked you that during that time frame that you had not given Mr. Anderson any indications that you were interested in rekindling your relationship, correct?
Right.
And that you weren't inviting him over because you didn't want him at your house, correct?
I guess that depends. So I wasn't inviting him over for romantic relations or anything like that, no.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 278. Correct, and it says, you texted him, morning, when did you leave? I thought you were going to stay. Correct, and he responds, good morning, pretty lady. I left when everyone fell asleep last night. Goes on, okay, but you fell asleep first. But you'd agree that that was a text message string between you and Mr. Anderson?
Yep.
So, Mr. Anderson had spent the night,
He came over to see the kids. Yep.
and he spent the night, or you thought he was going to spend the night.
Yeah, it was pretty late, so I don't know. Yeah, I asked if he had stayed or if he left. So,
So,
and I
before
left.
you said you didn't
Does this sound like someone who's afraid of him?
want him at your house at all around this time frame. And March 21st, 2020, you thought he was going to be staying at your house.
Yeah, if he said he was going to stay with the kids or if he wanted to stay, I may have said that was fine.
Also during this time frame, you were still calling Mr. Anderson by nicknames that you had given him, cute nicknames, right?
Probably.
Show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 277. And you say goodnight, Z-Bear, correct?
Yep.
Z-Bear was
Night,
one of the
Z-Bear.
nicknames you had for Mr. Anderson, correct?
It's a name that I call, yeah, it is.
times in March that you also called him by names that you had.
She does a good job impeaching Sadie by proving, like, you're not really afraid of him, are you? Because look at all these texts you're having and these conversations, and you're still stringing Zach along, aren't you? Type of defense strategy here.
Again, say good night, A Bear, and then say Z. Correct?
Sure. Yeah.
And he just said good night to you in this instance, and you're the one that used a romantic nickname, correct?
It's not a romantic nickname.
But it's not his name. His name's Zach or Zachariah, correct?
Yeah, I call him by a lot of different things if you look through the text. So it's not meant in any
Yeah, things like Z-Bear and Babe, you call him.
romantic way.
Let me ask you, in the time frame that you were dating him from 2007 to 2019, would you use the term Z-Bear?
I would use that term. I would use a lot of other terms as well.
Okay. And would you agree that that's kind of a term of endearment?
Sure, I call my daughter a bear. I call my friends bear. I use that term for a lot of people. It's very familiar to me, and so if I used it, it's because it was familiar to me.
Okay.
Going into April, and I'm just so you can kind of have a just of where I'm going. I'm just going to go as the state went. So April of 2020, you said that Mr. Anderson is still constantly emailing you, texting you, calling you, correct?
Yes.
And you had noted that he kept giving you gifts.
Yes.
What kind of gifts was Mr. Anderson giving you?
Not gifts. He would bring flowers, or he would leave flowers at the door, or when he would go pick up the kids and bring them, he'd have flowers with him to drop off the kids.
So they were only when he was dropping off the kids that he would bring these to you?
I don't know exactly when. It was random.
You said it was random, like how many times?
Don't know.
We listened to this recording.
How harassed she must have felt getting flowers from Zach randomly. Get out of here.
That was a phone conversation between you and Mr. Anderson from April 8th, 2022, or 2020, pardon me. And in that, you and Mr. Anderson seem to be having a conversation, and Mr. Anderson's talking to you about the things that he's doing, and you said, I'm not appreciating it.
Are you taking something he said out of context? Because I believe
Then just answer
he
the
was.
question, which is asked.
Well,
I was asking about what you said,
Okay.
which was, you said, I'm not appreciating this.
yes, I did hear that.
And so by saying that, you were acknowledging that you were not appreciating his kind gestures.
I don't know exactly. I mean, that was a very difficult to hear. So I would, in that conversation, I feel like I'm trying to let him know that I appreciate that he is, saying all these nice things, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to matter. So it is appreciated. Thank you, but no thank you.
But she didn't say thank you, no thank you. She didn't say it doesn't matter. She didn't say stop. She didn't say leave me alone. She said give me some space, I guess, but that doesn't... Is that like her version of we were on a break from Friends? We were on a break. Is that her version? I don't know.
And so during this time, too, do you remember the state asking you in April that you had no intention of Mr. Anderson coming over? You didn't want him at the house because you were, quote, afraid.
Yeah, I was.
She's scared of those flowers. They're so scary.
It's a text from May 23rd, or late May 22nd, again, UTC time.
March?
March.
April?
April 22nd, 2020. You text Mr. Anderson, picking up Panda Express. If you want to come over for a little bit, let me know. Correct?
Yep.
And right after that, you text Becky saying, oh my God, Liv is lying now and trying to make up things. This is out of control. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, and before that, Mr. Anderson, when we look at your latest string text, you had previously been talking about, when we look at the bottom, Olivia's homework, correct?
Correct.
And he didn't ask to come over at all, correct?
I don't know.
It wasn't, you were the one that asked if he wanted to come over for a little bit.
Where is that?
Sorry, this text picking up Panda Express. If you want to come over for a little bit, let me know.
Oh, yeah.
So Mr. Anderson doesn't start anything. Mr. Anderson doesn't ask to come over, and you invite him over during a time where you weren't allowed him at the house?
I was allowing him in the house to work with our daughter on assignments. It was also 2 days before her birthday, and so we were trying to plan and figure out what we were going to do for her birthday and what that was going to look like. So to see the kids, yeah, I probably would have allowed him to come over. And if I'm going to pick up food, I'm not going to sit there and eat it in front of him.
Ah.
But you agree that on that day, around that time frame,
Sorry.
Mr. Anderson hadn't even asked to come over. That was something that you had prompted.
Well, I mean, sure, you can take that out of context. You sure can. That day, yes.
Then claim that during this time, back in April, now let's move kind of later to April, before your daughter's birthday, Mr. Anderson's still texting you?
Yes.
Objection to the term you claim is argumentative. Sorry, objection to the term you claim is argumentative.
Well, what's the difference between saying that and saying you have testified?
Well, one reflects what is happening, and the other reflects that it sounds like it has a bias attached to it.
Well, I think there's probably some validity to that, but it's still an acceptable question overall.
You can ask again, please.
Sure, that during this time you've testified that Mr. Anderson is still texting you, but you have no desire in getting back together, rekindling the relationship.
I don't think we know what time. Objection is the vagueness.
Sorry, before that I'd asked the time about a specific date time.
Ask your question, please.
So we were in this late April before, the previous question I had said late April before your daughter's birthday, that you had previously testified that during this time frame, Mr. Anderson was continuously texting you, but that you had no desire to rekindle the relationship.
Correct.
And that you made that clear with him.
I did.
Did she though? I don't think so.
Show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 274. So this is going to be late night because of UTC time. Late night on April 22nd, 2020. You received a text from Mr. Gutierrez. What are you doing, Dave? Correct?
23rd, yes.
So it says the 23rd, but it's because UTC is plus 5 or 6. So late night, the 22nd. I just don't want there to be any misrepresentation. You also, at around 10 minutes later, received that text from Mr. Anderson. I still love you. Thanks for having me over. Good night. Correct? Mm-hmm. And so on the 22nd, you had Mr. Anderson at your house. He's saying thanks for having me over. Correct?
He
Yep.
wasn't at my house at that time.
No, not at that exact time, but you'd agree that he must have been there at some point because he says thanks for having me over.
Well, he texted me back later that day, which was the Panda Express day.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is him saying thank you for having me over after you had Panda Express together.
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
So then,
She's so scared of him.
about 7 minutes later, you text Mr. Gutierrez back to say, laying here, ready to go to bed, baby. Right? Yep. And then, about 1 minute later, Mr. Gutierrez messaged you back, says good night and sweet dreams. Right? Yep. And then, 2 minutes later, you text Mr. Anderson back and say, good night, XOXO.
Yep.
And then, 2 minutes later, you text Mr. Gutierrez, good night, Rosalio.
Yep.
Good night, XOXO. This is obvious, but XOXO, hugs and kisses.
Yep.
Over at the house, he says, thanks for having me over. You say good night, hugs and kisses, as you're at the same time texting Mr. Gutierrez.
Yes.
We then have the incident that you talked about on direct and you were shown the videos with Mr. Anderson at your residence, correct? That was kind of the next thing that happened?
Say that again?
The next thing you talked about the state was the incident that happened the night before your daughter's birthday.
Oh, yes.
And you went through some text messages where afterwards you had told Mr. Gutierrez about what you believed happened, correct?
Probably, yes. I know that I informed him after I'd found out.
So I got to take my dogs out because I think they're asking to go potty, but I'm going to leave this playing. I'm going to turn my webcam off just for a second, and let me skip through this here.
appears to be your text messages?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna go to the second page. So these text messages that we see, this page, I'm gonna go zoom in here. There's text messages between you and Jeannie, correct? And then someone named Cha, right?
Yes.
And then we have this text message that reads from Mr. Gutierrez, or you sent to Mr. Gutierrez. Well, I guess if he has your info, you should have his. ... Correct? Sure. I know it's hard because it's terribly blurry. So it says 4/26/2020 at 1:20 a.m., but it's UTC time. So that's going to be for the very late evening hours on April 25th, 2020. And then the next text messages we have in response to that was from Junior, who said, already figured it out. I did a little bit. Facebook investigations. You said, I just went fucking off the rails, excuse my language, but that's what it says, off the rails on him a few minutes ago, correct?
Yep.
And then there's a text, the next text message from him says, for the record, only if you say it's okay, right?
Yep.
And then there's a string of messages between you and other people, one from him that says Chinese for dinner tonight, correct?
No, so when you're saying for him, can you?
Sorry, Mr. Gutierrez. This one.
Yes.
So this was a string, and this was just taken from your Cellbrite reports. We have page 184 and page 185. And this is an accurate string of the messages between you and him for that time period?
Looks like a string of messages between a lot of people, but yes.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 280, which is page 2 of 280. This is from Mr. Gutierrez's Cellbrite download. So this is not in UTC time, this is in normal time. April 25th, 2020 at 8:41 p.m. He sends you a text, that's what I'm going to do. I already reached out to old friends. I can be hands-free from this situation, correct?
That's what it says.
Then he says, just a good old-fashioned ass whooping, maybe broken leg or something, correct?
That's what it says.
Then there's a text from him at 8:48 p.m. on April 25th, 2020 that says, then delete those texts from your phone. To which you respond, what texts, correct?
Yes.
And then he says, for the record, only if you say it's okay, correct?
Yep.
Which would correspond to Defense Exhibit 272, this message about for the record, only if you say it's okay, correct? It's the same,
Yeah,
same text.
Same text, yes.
But what we don't have in here, in your text message string, was this whole language about you deleting texts, correct?
Probably.
So then you deleted these texts where Mr. Gutierrez tells you that he could do something to Mr. Anderson, correct?
Yes, I did.
And then, on May 25th at 9:24 p.m., Mr. Gutierrez sends you a text message that says 6813 Highland Road, Mequon, Wisconsin, 53092, correct?
Yes.
And do you know whose address that is?
I do.
Whose is it?
Zach's.
Mr. Anderson's?
Zachariah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was sent from Junior to you, correct?
Correct.
And that was at 9:24:49?
Yes.
So when we look back at Defense Exhibit 2, or 272, your text message for around 9:51 p.m. on April 25th, which is right above the highlighted portion, that text is also missing from your string about Mr. Gutierrez sending you Mr. Anderson's address, correct?
Yep.
Moving on, Junior asks you, is this accurate, correct?
Yep.
And then you respond, Poppy no snitch, correct?
Correct.
You had given Mr. Gutierrez information prior to him sending you that address. You had given Mr. Gutierrez some information about where Mr. Anderson lived, correct?
I may have.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 279. So this is April 25th at 8:21 p.m. You send Mr. Gutierrez a text that says Zachariah Anderson lives in Mequon, correct?
Yes.
And this was after the one below. You said, well, I guess if he has your info, you should have his, correct?
Yes.
So the following day, you and Mr. Gutierrez, and again, this is from his Cellbrite report, continue to talk about Mr. Anderson, right?
Sure. Yes.
So the state had gone over a little bit, but I'm going to give you the full message string here, starting on page 2 of Defense Exhibit 281. I'll just mark a T on that. Oh. Thank you. All right, we'll start at the bottom. So, April 26th at 8:54 p.m., Junior texted you. Did he record more? Correct?
Yes.
I think you kind of went through these. You said he took your vehicle registration and a note from a DJ. When he left today, he said, you know that fucker doesn't care about you. He really loves DJ. To which you were, and then you sent another text. I wasn't sure what he was saying and why, but then Liv just told me he took something from your car and still has them, including this letter, so he was definitely here. Then Mr. Gutierrez responds, LOL, that's so funny. That note was in the passenger side back pocket. He has a letter from the last owner of the car. And then you said, LOL, I have no clue and don't really care, correct?
Correct.
And that was you referring to this alleged love letter from this previous owner, right?
Correct.
You were telling him that you're not worried about it.
Correct.
And then he says his daughter found it the other day when she was riding in the back seat. And you say, again, really, I'm not worried or questioning, correct?
Correct.
And then you send a text, I'm fucking pissed he removed your personal information from your car, correct?
Correct.
Then you see this text that we heard about before, Liv wants to meet you and your kids before you. And then Junior says, I'm not worried about it, correct?
Correct.
And he says he can have all my info. I want him to know exactly who beat his ass up, correct?
Correct.
I didn't hear the answer.
Correct.
Thank you.
I care about you and don't want to cause more problems, but I think I'm going to pay him a visit, correct?
Yes.
This is on April 26th at 9:02 p.m. Right?
Yes, that's what he says.
Then he says there needs to be consequences for his actions, correct?
Correct.
So this whole string, when you're talking to him, there needs to be consequences for his actions, I'm going to go pay him a visit, all of this stuff is in reference to the conversation that you had about Mr. Anderson going into Mr. Gutierrez's vehicle, correct?
I think this was in reference to all of it.
But this was immediately after. This whole line of questioning
Yes.
that I just went over on the previous date and the 26th is all stemming from Mr. Anderson going into Mr. Gutierrez's vehicle.
Objection. She's already answered that question and said it was everything. It wasn't just going in the vehicle.
Sustained.
In these text message strings, though, what you were talking about, I'm going to show you again, Defense Exhibit 281. You're talking about Mr. Anderson going into the vehicle, taking the registration and the note from DJ, correct?
Yeah, I think he was fed up with this as being the final thing, yes.
Okay. And so this is around the same time, this is Defense Exhibit 271, Mr. Gutierrez texted you and said, yeah, I'm not allowing it either, he's going to find out, correct?
Yes.
And this is still when he, referring to he, you and him are still talking about Mr. Anderson, correct?
Yes.
To show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 273. So looking at the text message,
You say 273, Counsel?
correct, Defense Exhibit 273. This is a message that you sent later on the 25th at 11 p.m. to Junior. He took a video of us on the couch and me in just my tank top and us going into the bedroom, then showed Liv. She just told me everything, correct?
Yes.
He says, are you fucking serious? That's enough to call the cops, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then he says, what's his fucking address, correct?
Yes.
And then after that is when you wind up saying that he lives in Mequon and Mr. Gutierrez sends you Mr. Anderson's address, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So those conversations, that one was on the 25th, but all these conversations go into late night around 9 p.m. on the 26th of April, correct?
Yes. Okay.
So then, Defense Exhibit 260, at 3:11 in the morning on April 26, 2020, you have a nearly 3-hour FaceTime call with Mr. Gutierrez, correct?
Yes.
That on April 26th, so same date, around this time frame, that you believe that yours and Mr. Gutierrez's relationship was moving forward, correct?
Yes.
Were you aware at this time that Mr. Gutierrez was dating other women?
No, I wouldn't know that.
You then said on direct that on April 26th, Mr. Gutierrez had said that he got in the car to go to Mr. Anderson's home, but then chose not to.
Yeah, he mentioned something about that.
But you weren't with him on the evening of April 26th.
No.
He did go, though.
So you couldn't see where he was, correct?
Correct. No.
There were times where on direct examination, the state said that Mr. Anderson appeared to know things, or you thought he knew things about Mr. Gutierrez that you had not told him or discussed with him, correct?
Yeah, he told me things that he should not have known. Not disclosed to him, I should say.
But Mr. Anderson would discuss these things with you, correct?
Discuss what?
Things about Mr. Gutierrez.
No. You have to be more specific.
From the state's perspective, is improper, and I've asked the court to take a look at it. It's communication that has a particular fact that I think is irrelevant and is it should not be allowed. And I believe it's irrelevant.
All right, come on. This is why I watch things fast, too, because I can then skip through the boring part.
Sequentially, Judge. Sure.
May I see it first? But don't, that.
They're sending the jury out now? Oh, jeez. They are. So now they're going to argue whatever this thing is. Let's go back a little bit.
I may be able to give you some assistance there. I don't recall that ever being a problem. I also don't recall having missed by this much on an anticipated completion date. But other issues.
Oh, I think he's telling the jury how they're behind schedule and taking so long.
The original line of inquiry was about spending more time than usual, and then the witness actually started to volunteer more information. And Ms. Miller said, we don't need to get into that. You're getting into it. What's the relevance?
The relevance is going to come out, well, basically the state's going to be arguing that someone gave the phone to Olivia, and I'm allowed to get into evidence that Olivia would obtain, or her daughter would obtain, cell phones by other means.
Well, they haven't argued that, number one. Number two, they're not mutually exclusive.
Sure.
And at this point, anyway, I'm going to sustain the objection. So you can ask another. Somehow I thought I had ruled.
You did, Joe.
Yeah, well, that's when the chatter stops. Ask a question.
You then said around this time that you thought Mr. Anderson was tracking you, correct?
Oh, so he didn't send the jury out. It sounded like he was, but he didn't. They just argued in front of the jury, I guess.
Beginning of May? Is that the time frame you're talking about?
Yeah, late April, early May.
Yes.
And this prior to you finding the cell phone in your vehicle that you testified about, you thought he was tracking you, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 268. Again, this is Defense Exhibit 8. On May 9th, 2020, around noon, because it's UTC time, you had texted someone named Path and said, hey, ... think I can confirm he didn't put the tracker on my car yet. Last night when I dropped off the kids, he snuck a burner phone under the boy's car seat, correct?
Correct.
So, who's Path?
A friend of mine.
Okay, and you at this point then, prior then, you confirm on this date, on May 9th at around noon, 2020, you are like, don't think he actually put a tracker in your car. Correct? That's what you're saying.
No, I think he's still tracking me. I don't know that he put the tracker that he had on my car. So it says, I think I confirmed that he didn't put the tracker on my car, or maybe I can't confirm. I'm not sure. There's a lot of typos in there. So
I can give this to you, but I'm going to read it out loud again. You said, hey, think I can confirm he didn't put the tracker on my car yet.
Yeah.
That seems pretty straightforward in that you believe then he hadn't put the tracker because you found the phone, correct?
Not yet. He had not put it on my car yet. Correct.
So then up until the point that you find the phone, at that point you understand or come to some realization that Mr. Anderson hasn't put a tracker on your vehicle. At least you didn't think he did.
I wasn't sure. Actually, my friend is the one who I asked to check my car for the tracker.
And when when he checked that car for the tracker, he found nothing, correct?
Well, he's not an expert. He just once
answer the
overchecked.
question which
So,
was asked.
he didn't find anything. No.
Again, she's got serious attitude, man. Now that she's being cross-examined, she definitely doesn't want to answer any of her questions. And she's trying to avoid answering a lot of questions.
Can I have your exhibit 207? Exhibit 207. This was a text message string where Mr. Anderson, earlier we read this, or the state read it to you, about Mr. Anderson basically saying you're wearing too much makeup. For Charles, angry about pond water, hat, fancy jacket, hiding in the back of your ride, premonitions don't make me psychic, call me Zachariah when she feels good, denim shirt, ... Kenosha, correct? You remember going through these? Yes.
Counsel, is this May 8th? Just so yes, we can-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Anderson had actually seen you right before these texts were sent, correct?
Yes.
Because you had gone to drop off the kids.
Right.
So he,
Yes. You saw what I was wearing, correct?
so, indirect, the state had shown you two phones, one of which was a flip phone, one of which was a smartphone. Remember them?
Yes.
And you said that when, on May 7th of 2020, you had found the smartphone, the burner phone, and that your daughter had that, correct?
Yeah.
Around May 7th, around May 8th.
Yes.
Around that time.
Yes, she had one of his burner phones, yes.
And it was that same phone that your daughter had that you then found under the seat of your son's car seat, correct? Was that same phone?
I think so.
So then, May 13th, you have a conversation with Mr. Anderson about custody of the kids where he says he's going to try to get custody of the kids, correct?
Yeah, that was I think it was either the 13th or the 8th, somewhere in there. There was that conversation, yeah.
And that conversation, that's when you gave that phone back to him, around that time frame?
I don't know.
So that phone, the smart-looking phone, not the flip phone, Olivia, your daughter had it, and then you find it in your car seat. When do you give it back to him?
No, these are two very separate situations, so
Okay, so I'm going to walk through it then. Around May 8th, you find this phone on Olivia.
So I found the phone on Olivia at a friend's house. I took that phone and gave it back to him.
When did you give it back to Mr. Anderson?
The next time I saw him, or I gave it to Olivia to give it back to him, he got the phone back. That wasn't, I just gave it back to him. There wasn't anything about it.
Okay, so then after you find the
I
phone
recall it,
in
yeah.
your vehicle, when do you remember a date or about when you gave that phone back to him?
When I gave it back to him, when I gave him the phone after I found it in the car,
Yes.
and then when did I give it back to him? Maybe a couple of days later.
Why didn't you just give it back to him right away? Like you did the first time?
Honestly, I just had enough. I was going to keep it, and I really just wanted to see what was going on. I really can't explain. It's a very stressful thing having somebody constantly tracking you and finding phones in your car. So I guess I just was very, I wanted answers, and I wanted him to stop. And so I kept the phone, and I wanted to see if he was going to try to get the phone back and ask for it back, and that's exactly what happened. Is I knew that if I hung on to the phone, that it was a phone that was connected. So the other phones that he had were not in service. So this one was a particular phone that was in service, and it was one that he used to communicate with me. So I kept that one, and just an effort to kind of stop all of it. If he didn't have the phone, then he couldn't put it in my car anymore.
So, but on direct, you remember saying about how Mr. Anderson, from the day that he texted you that going down to Kenosha, looking pretty, smelling good, makeup, whatever, until you gave the phone back, that Mr. Anderson continuously was texting you about the phone.
So he was texting me from his other phone, and he was calling me from his flip phone.
Inquiring about his cell phone.
Correct.
So you wanted the communication from Mr. Anderson to stop, and you thought it would stop, that Mr. Anderson, during that time frame, that the communication would stop if you didn't give his phone back?
I didn't want communication to stop. I wanted his stalking behavior to stop.
But you'd agree that had you just given him the phone earlier, those days of text message where Mr. Anderson's asking you if you found his phone and where his phone is, that could have been avoided had you just simply given Mr. Anderson his phone back.
Sustained.
So May 13th, 2020 happens. We talked about that. May 16th is the date where you received the text about you racing down to Kenosha at any point, correct?
Yes.
And on that day, Mr. Anderson had also had the opportunity to see you, correct?
If I dropped off the kids, then he saw me.
On May 14th, strike that, Rebecca Jekyll, or is that how you say your last name?
Yes.
Who is that to you?
It's my best friend.
Okay. And were you conversing with her about things that were bothering you about Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
All right, it looks like this is the end of the day. And we're going to skip to the next day now and watch day 2. Sadie's on the stand for 2 days. She was on the stand for this entire day and portion of the next day. So this was day 9. She's also on the stand day 10 for some of the day. So let's get back into
Had noted that
Cross.
you had affirmed that you had called him Z-Bear and said you call a lot of people Bear. During March of 2020 through May of 2020, were you still referring to Mr. Anderson as Babe?
I was. Now, I, still refer to, out of habit, of course, and also because, I didn't hate him. I was just trying to be amicable and kind and show kindness and not be rude and mean.
And then in May of 2020, do you remember telling Mr. Anderson that you were going to, quote, fuck with him?
No, I don't remember that.
I'm going to pull up what was previously marked as State's Exhibit 208. These nice highlighted ones. And then there was this one in between where on May 10th, 2020, you sent Mr. Anderson a text that says, "You are stupid for trying to fuck with me, so you get fucked with back."
I think it says either me.
Well, then you correct yourself saying with, correct?
It says either. It doesn't say trying to fuck with me.
Okay, so literally,
but it's just banter. I mean, there's nothing I'm doing. I'm literally trying to get him off of my back. Literally just trying to appease things and literally just trying to get him to stop. So I don't, if you want to take all of that language out of context, you're more than welcome. But
Just answer the question, please.
it's just banter.
So I want to go back to
Just answer the question, please.
you saying that it says either, not with. You admit that 6 seconds or 7 seconds after you sent that first text, you sent a text that says with, correct?
Where do you see that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I corrected myself.
So then you'd agree that you meant to say, "You are stupid for trying to fuck with me, so you get fucked with back."
Yep, banter.
Well, you meant it to be banter, you're saying, but you don't know how Mr. Anderson took that, correct?
Well, I don't know how Mr. Anderson took that. I know that I took his actions very personally, too, so I felt very, quote-unquote, fucked with, if you will.
Ma'am, please just answer the question which is asked.
I did. Thank you.
Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I did.
That's what she get. She give an attitude to the judge. She's gonna go to jail
So you get fucked with back.
for contempt.
Banter.
Well, you
I know that I took his actions very personally, too, so I felt very, quote-unquote, fucked with, if you will.
Ma'am, please just answer the question which is asked.
I did. Thank you.
Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I did.
I also want to go back to the Moto G6
Attitude.
phone, the smartphone, not the flip phone that you had found. There was a screenshot that you had taken. I'm going to show you what was previously marked as State's Exhibit 254. So, how did you get into the phone if it was password protected, like you said?
This time it wasn't. When I took it from my daughter, it wasn't password protected at that time.
And so after you get the phone, you decide you're going to go through it, even though you didn't know how your daughter got it.
I decided to go through it because I knew and had information that he was tracking me and following me and stalking me. And so I went in his phone to go see if there were, also because I was informed that there were videos and recordings of me that my daughter had taken. So I went on the phone to go and look to see if I could find any of those things. And then I went on to see if there was anything in Amazon, like a tracker or anything, because I was being informed that I was being tracked. So I went on the phone to go and look for evidence of any of that I could prove. I answered the question.
Judge, with all due
Just
respect,
finish my sentence.
Judge, with all due respect, I'm going to just indicate I think that was the full answer to why she went through the phone. So the question was, why did you go through the phone?
It's not unique to this witness. Some witnesses, for example, are evasive and they form their answers in such a way to try to avoid answering the question. And some try to take command of the situation and expand beyond the actual question which is asked. And I don't want to give the impression that she's doing something wrong. It's just the way people talk. I don't know. Do you have people that you would rather they just not stay on the phone with you as long as they do? And that's the basic concept.
Sure. So, I think I understand what the court is saying. It was an open-ended question. It had a long answer because there's a lot of reasons she went in that phone, and she described those. And I apologize, Judge, but that, if it's a more narrow question, then I certainly understand.
If this is the only time that it had happened, I wouldn't have said a word.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So you just said that at this point, when you took this screenshot, you thought he was tracking you, right?
Yes, I thought he was tracking me, doing things to track me, yes.
And so, if you thought someone was tracking you, what would you think you would find in their phone on Amazon that was actively tracking you?
A tracker?
Well, so you went into Amazon. How did you log into his Amazon account?
I just opened the app that was already logged in.
So you had access to his Amazon Prime account then, his full account.
I guess that phone did.
Well, let's walk through that again. You went into his phone, you opened his account, you said you could open it and access his Amazon account, correct?
I didn't access it. Yes, I could access it. I could see it. It was open and the app was already logged in, so I could see what he last purchased. So that's correct.
You agreed that this is you would have had to gone into Amazon Prime, gone into orders, clicked through his entire account.
I clicked on last order and that's what I got.
Did you go through anything else in his phone?
I looked at any videos or audio.
Did you find anything in there?
I did.
Take screenshots of that?
I did not. It was audio.
So now going back to where we left off yesterday, which was May 17th, 2020. Got these texts from Mr. Gutierrez. We had talked about that. That was about where we left off. The next day, how did you reach out to or attempt to make contact with Mr. Gutierrez?
I texted him.
Sorry, what was that?
I texted him.
And then were there days where you attempted to call him?
I called him later on the 18th. And then I called him the morning of the 19th.
And do you remember on direct examination talking about how every time you called, it went straight to voicemail?
Yes?
Did you ever leave a voicemail?
No. I don't think so.
So she never left a voicemail saying, "Hey, I'm worried about you. Can you please call me back?" And yet she goes over there to confront him, find him, talk to him after she thinks he either ghosts her or whatever. There's something wrong. It's just suspicious.
So each time it was the same thing. You called, immediately went to voicemail, and you never left a voicemail.
Objection. She's already. Hold on. She's already answered that. It's a repeated question.
I'm trying to have a collective answer because it was a sequence of answers. You can answer.
Can you ask the question again?
Sure. That each time you called him, it it went to voicemail, and each time it went immediately to voicemail, and each time it went to voicemail, you never left a message.
It went to voicemail every time I called. I don't remember if I left a message or not.
What is State Exhibit 193? Put it at the bottom. Is on May 18th, 2020, at 5:21 p.m., you call Mr. Gutierrez, correct?
Yes.
And that call lasts 5 seconds, correct?
Yep.
And so this is you calling and it immediately going to voicemail and you not leaving a voicemail. 5 seconds.
Possibly.
Then I want to go to 5:18 at 7 p.m. You called Junior. That call lasts 20 seconds.
Maybe the voicemail's long. I don't know. Maybe I listened to it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I didn't hang up right. I'm not sure. 20 seconds. I don't know.
You'd agree it's 15 seconds longer than the first one, which you said went straight to voicemail. You hung up.
Yes.
And then this was Facebook Messenger attempted phone call through Facebook, correct? At 5:18 at 7:42.
Yes.
That was 0 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Why didn't you leave a voicemail?
I don't know. I don't remember if I did or I didn't. I was
If you did leave
pretty worried, so I don't know.
Yeah, if you did leave a voicemail, you should have it, correct?
Objection, how would she know? Speculation. That we should have.
Objection is sustained. Well, I don't. Both her question and your objection were already legitimate. 40 years up here, that's a
Very true. Yeah, I can see that.
So you're both sustained.
So 5:17, you get there. When you get there, you call your best friend, correct?
519 counsel, probably.
5:19, sorry, I
Yeah.
apologize.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question now?
On May 19th, 2020, when you arrived at Mr. Gutierrez's apartment, you call your friend.
I may have already been on the phone.
And that was Rebecca Jekyll?
Yes. Probably called her on the way down, honestly.
Do you remember the day prior, on May 18th, telling Miss Jekyll that you needed to go by her house to grab a phone?
I don't remember that.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as Defense Exhibit 264. Page 2.
And I think we have ruled on whether this type of discussion can be had with individuals. So I'm speaking about all of our early discussions, and I'm not sure how this line of questioning is not the same.
You were referring to the motions that were...
I'm referring to stipulations, and yes, all of those things we talked about.
She hasn't asked a question yet. So
Well,
I don't know.
she's suggesting a
May I
particular...
see what you're going to read from?
Just
hold on.
No,
Okay.
I think you and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
All right, they're arguing about whatever questioning they're asking her about some text or something.
If you need me to hand it to you just because of how the Elmo looks, let me know.
I did not hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was telling the witness that if she needs me to hand her the exhibit, because it's not always the best.
But you know what? I do think that if... Is there a mic? Isn't that extra mic around there somewhere? No? Okay.
I'll just project. That helps.
Well, it usually does, but...
Yeah, I just don't want to
go
be
ahead.
screaming at Mrs. Beecham. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
On May 18th, 2020, you had texted your friend Becky, and Becky is Rebecca Jekyll,
Yes.
and you asked her, hey, you at home, gotta grab the phone, ... Correct?
Yes. What it says.
What were you referring to?
I don't remember.
It's very convenient, the messages that they don't remember. Her and Rebecca Jekyll.
.5/19, 2020, you arrive at Mr. Gutierrez's apartment, you're on the phone with Becky, and you notice that the screen door was it the screen door or glass door that was open?
It was a screen door.
So the glass door was closed?
The glass door was open all the way. The screen door was closed.
So she just contradicted herself.
And when you noticed this, are you still on the phone with Becky?
Yes, probably. Yes, I was.
And then I just want to walk through some of the things that you noticed that were, after you had looked in, that were misplaced. You said that there was a gray rug that was missing.
Yes.
Did you notice anything else missing?
I didn't go inside of the apartment. So the only things I really could notice that I felt that was major that I noticed right away was the rug missing and the furniture being moved.
She just said she didn't go in the apartment, but I specifically recall her saying somewhere else that she did go in the apartment. And then on the 911 call, she was asking the 911 dispatcher, should I go in or not? And the dispatcher was like, I wouldn't. If you're uncomfortable, don't go in. So, like, this whole, did she go in or not? Didn't she? I think she went in. I think she she definitely was in that apartment before the police came.
And what furniture did you note that was moved? You had said, besides the kitchen table and the white coffee tables, was there any other furniture that you had seen that had been moved?
I don't remember. It was a pretty traumatic scene, so I don't really remember everything.
Do you remember telling detectives that you also saw a tool belt?
Yes, there was a tool belt laying right by the door when I opened it.
I'm going to show you with regard to Defense Exhibit 153. Was this the tool belt that you saw?
Yes.
And did you think it was that out of place to you?
Yes.
Why was that out of place to you?
Because it just wasn't there before, and that's not a normal place. I don't think we're supposed to leave a tool belt scattered.
In your time knowing Mr. Gutierrez, would he leave his tool belt there?
No, not that I ever saw.
Did you tell law enforcement that?
I believe I said something about the tool belt or something missing or tools. I don't remember.
You spoke to 2 detectives on scene on May 19th, 2020.
Yes.
The first detective you spoke to, isn't it true that you immediately stated you suspected Mr. Anderson?
I didn't immediately state that, no.
Okay. And did you tell, and that detective, if you remember, was Detective Anschutz?
Yes.
And do you remember telling Detective Anschutz that your daughter had pertinent information pertaining to the disappearance of Mr. Gutierrez?
I told Detective Anschutz that my daughter had told me that my ex had taken, that her dad, Zach, had taken the registration out of Rosalio's car, and I stated that that's what I knew, that she had just told me, and that's what I told Detective Anschutz.
So you didn't tell Detective Anschutz that your daughter had information about Mr. Gutierrez's disappearance?
I did not say that, those words, no.
And then, after you spoke with the 2 detectives on scene, you had gone here to Kenosha, to the public safety building, and had another interview.
Yes.
And that time, you brought your daughter along.
Yes.
So what time, if you remember approximately, did you leave the scene on May 19th, 2020?
I don't remember.
Do you remember how long you approximately were there for?
It was before probably 4 because I had to get the kids, and so it would have been somewhere before school ended.
So when you went to the public safety building for your interview with your daughter, how did you and your daughter drive together?
We did, actually. My stepmom drove us.
And on direct, you had testified that you told your daughter that you had concerns about your friend that was missing, correct?
Yes.
When did you have that conversation with your daughter?
On the 18th, when I couldn't get a hold of him all that day and night, I had mentioned something to her, and that it was just a brief mention. And then the 19th, when I came back home, I again just reminded her, like, hey, remember Mom was really worried? And she said, yeah, and then I went from there.
Remember, OA testified that her mom didn't talk to her about Rosalio ever. But then, yeah, and then after the fact, after he went missing, she's like, well, there were things to be spoken about, whatever that meant. So I don't know.
On May 18th, 2020, why did you tell your daughter that your friend was missing?
because she could visibly see me crying and upset, and so she asked me what was wrong, and I told her that I was worried about Rosalio, about my friend missing.
But you didn't know if he was missing on May 18th, 2020.
Objection? Argumentative? She's answered the question.
Overruled.
I couldn't get a hold of him, and so in my eyes he was missing.
So, again, you had only been dating this man for about 3 months.
Objection? Again, argumentative. This has been asking.
Did you know Mr. Gutierrez's work schedule?
Sort of. I mean, he worked for himself, and then he also worked with some other folks, so to my understanding and from what he told me, he kind of made his own schedule.
So on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020, you went to Kenosha, to Mr. Gutierrez's apartment around 11 a.m.?
Yes, somewhere around there.
And you knew that Mr. Gutierrez kept his doors locked, correct?
I don't know if I knew that or not. So,
And did you know if he was working?
I didn't know. I didn't know where he was or what was going on.
And how far of a drive was it from where you were to Mr. Gutierrez's apartment?
It's about an hour.
Were you aware of Mr. Gutierrez's financial problems?
Objection. This is, again, irrelevant. Whatever financial problems he's having, irrelevant.
There's no,
Goes to the police investigation judge.
well,
First of all, it assumes material that I think would be foundational. And the objection is sustained.
Back to the conversations you had with your daughter. Prior to May 18th, 2020, you had admitted that there were other occasions where you did talk to your daughter about Mr. Gutierrez, correct?
A few.
Some of Mr. Gutierrez's friends around May 18th to May 19th, 2020?
Yes.
And you had said on direct that you were unable to get in contact with any of his friends?
Correct.
And prior to attempting that contact, you had never met any of Mr. Gutierrez's friends, correct?
No.
No, that's not correct, or no, I had not.
No, I had not.
And you had not met any of his family members?
No, other than his 2 children.
You had also mentioned on direct that when you were at the scene on May 19th, 2020, you called the daycare and you were nervous about your kids, correct?
Yes.
Because you thought Mr. Anderson might go to the daycare?
Yes.
And you said that the daycare knows to call you if Mr. Anderson would show up there?
Yes.
You never got a call that day that Mr. Anderson showed up at the daycare, correct?
When I called, they told me that he had not, no.
And after you called them, you never received a call from the daycare?
No.
So then why was she worried?
After May 19th and a couple months, do you remember asking to be present at an interview with your daughter in November of 2020?
Yes.
And previously, you had not been present with your daughter when she was interviewed by law enforcement.
No.
Why did you want to be present
Well,
on the...
again, are you saying your question was previously you had not been present?
Email.
I'm skipping forward a little bit. We've got a redirect and a recross, I think, or at least a redirect, so let's let that play out.
Oh, I just mentioned that.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 288, which was what I just handed you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an email that you sent to Mr. Anderson, correct?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
date and the date on that was May 18th.
Never mind. This is almost over. I don't see a cross or a redirect. So it looks like this is the last of her testimony here. A few
2020
minutes.
at 7:24 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And this email is about you coordinating a schedule with Mr. Anderson for visitation and looks like a holiday schedule as well. Do Do you agree?
Yes.
So previously you had testified that on Monday, May 18th, 2020, you had told your daughter that you believed Mr. Gutierrez was missing, correct?
Objection. Argument of mischaracterization of what's been said so far. She said she was crying because she was not in touch with him. At this point, she has not told her daughter that he is missing and certainly has not indicated anything about Mr. Anderson. So it's a mischaracterization of the evidence and it is irrelevant.
Rephrase your question.
Multiple times during direct examination, and
You don't need to summarize
Sure.
what you believe the testimony was. You can just ask another question.
sure. So you sent an email to Mr. Anderson trying to coordinate future visitations, even though at this point you're scared of him, you want nothing to do with him, and you believe your friend is missing.
Yes, I'm trying to coordinate for the children an agreeable schedule.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Judge, I'd ask to move in Defense Exhibit 288 and Defense Exhibit 264.
Objection?
They're fine.
Proceed.
Ms. Beecham, you were just shown Defense Exhibit 288, which was an email
Here's redirect.
between, you to Mr. Anderson on the 18th of May. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And previously yesterday you had talked about a conversation you and the defendant had all the way back in February of 2020 regarding how you saw your relationship moving forward, with you saying you just wanted to set up a schedule with the kids.
Correct.
Is this email in reference to your ultimate goal, which is to set up a reliable schedule for your children?
Yes.
Is there any mention in this email of wanting to get back together with him?
No.
Is there any language in here that says hugs and kisses from you to him?
No.
Is there any pet name?
It doesn't matter that it's not in that email. We've seen it in the text, so it's not like this email erases those text messages that were made.
Is there anything special you call him here regarding your deep love and affection for him that you've had all these years?
No.
So ultimately, was this you just trying to put a permanent schedule in place to make it regular for the kids?
Objection leading.
Why was it important to you to put a permanent schedule in place?
To avoid any more conflict with him and to just keep it cut and dry to the kids and exchanging.
Now, on this day, you had testified that you had attempted to reach Mr. Gutierrez multiple times.
Yes.
And at that point, you hadn't yet driven down to Kenosha and seen the scene, accurate?
Correct.
So does this email have anything to do with your worry for Mr. Gutierrez?
No.
Now, we previously talked about May 7th and you catching your daughter with a phone that you indicated she was supposed to record you on. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And that you had taken that phone from her and ultimately looked through it for the Amazon purchase that you then showed on the screen?
Yes.
Objection leading.
I'm just trying to get to the questions for you.
Sustain.
And after you took that phone from your daughter and did the investigation into the Amazon purchases, what, if anything, did you do on that phone search-wise?
Nothing that I recall. I just was looking for the videos that I was told that were on there, and then I was looking to see if there was any other evidence of.
You previously testified that the defendant has a number of different phones. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And so I specifically shown you State's Exhibit 112, which was the flip phone, and 113, which was the Moto G6 phone that you call a burner phone.
Yes.
Were there additional phones that you were aware of that the defendant had?
Yes.
No objections have been asked and answered on direct.
Your Honor, they then went into what phone was recovered on the 7th.
The objections are moved.
And directing your attention to that May 7th, after you had done your cursory search of the phone, did you use that phone that you had found that night for any other purposes that night?
No.
I'm approaching you with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 287.
All right.
Which are Celebrate reports regarding the Moto G6 phone web activity from May 7th of 2020. What time approximately do you remember, in terms of the time of day, you finding this phone on your daughter that you then confiscated?
I found it would have been at night. Yeah, it would have been at night. I feel like the next day maybe I looked or I can't remember.
So the phone you found on your daughter, you found the night of the 7th.
Correct.
So I'm going to show you the web search history and message history for the G6 phone from that same night and inquire if, based on this activity, this was you on this phone or this phone was not the one you located on your daughter.
Okay.
So we'll go to, it's going to be page 4 of this exhibit. History on the Moto G6 at 11:08 p.m. Last visited something called Flex Steel Curved Couch OBO Furniture. See that at the top?
Yeah.
Then below that, 5/7 at 11:09 p.m. Milwaukee for sale couch on Craigslist. See that?
Yeah.
5:07 and 11:10 p.m. Recliner couch, love seat furniture. See that?
Yeah.
Are these any searches that you are doing on the phone you found on Olivia on the 7th of May?
No.
So the Moto G6 that is having these searches be done on it wasn't you.
Objection, leading and argumentative.
So,
The objection is sustained.
so this Moto G6 is searching for these things. That's not you.
I'm going to object again, then speculative,
Leading
argumentative.
with different words.
I'm just going to continue on with additional searches that occur on this phone. So 5:07, we continue to look at couches. Is that accurate on this Moto G6 phone?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
And are any of those you?
No.
11:25, Milwaukee for sale couch. Is that you?
No.
I'm just going to skip some pages here. Number 8 of this exhibit of the Moto G6 search history from that night. Early morning hours. Now we're at actually 5:08 at 4:50 a.m. Back on Craigslist for jobs for a couch. Do you see all those?
Yes.
Then more search history at 5:01 a.m. Is that you?
No.
Now, you had previously talked about other phones that the defendant had had. Are you familiar with those phones as well?
Yes.
So are you sure exactly which phone your daughter had that night that she was trying to report you with?
I don't know the exact phone.
But the search history from the G6 isn't you.
No. There were 3 Moto G6, or 3 of those.
When you say there were 3 of those, who owned 3 of these?
He had 3 of those Moto 6s. They were all the same kind of phone.
Okay, so you recovered what you believe to be a Moto G6 phone. You're just not sure which one?
Correct.
If she is in possession of the phone, how is the phone making searches if it's not her? I don't understand what they're trying to get at here. That Zach was doing these searches remotely? I don't get it.
You were shown some texts regarding language about the defendant, and excuse the terminology, fucking with you and you fucking back with the defendant. Do you remember that?
Yes.
What was your emotional mindset at that time regarding what the defendant was doing?
Well, I was upset. I was scared. I was frustrated. I didn't know what to do anymore. I reached out for help and asked, but was told that there was nothing I could do unless I had proof. So, yeah, I just at my wit's end. I just wanted it all to stop. I wanted all of it to just stop.
And that specific text was from May 10th of 2020. With some of that frustration that you just described regarding finding the planted phone.
Objection, leading.
What about the defendant's behavior in the days preceding that made you so frustrated?
Yeah, finding the phone was definitely a big deal. And just everything leading up to it seemed like it just kept getting more and more amped up, more and more. There were more things I was finding out, more information that was trickling in. The fact that my daughter was telling me she had knowledge of things that was very frustrating. I felt like I didn't have control of.
Knowledge of things that were very frustrating. The hell does that mean? Because she found out about you and Rosalio because Zach took her there to show her with her own eyes that you've been lying to her? Maybe, possibly. I don't know if you were not telling her who Leo was. I don't know. Just a thought.
Situation, and I just wanted to try to be as amicable as possible, and he wasn't allowing us to do that, and so it just became frustrating, and I just felt like just angry.
You previously had shown some text messages between yourself and Mr. Gutierrez regarding Mr. Gutierrez talking about wanting to beat his ass. You remember those?
Yeah.
What were the emotions going on in your life regarding the defendant's behavior that led to you having those feelings at that point?
I guess I'm going to object to the form of the question. She was talking about the text messages Mr. Gutierrez sent.
I'll rephrase.
She's crying now to be a victim.
During that text exchange, your frustration, I guess, were you frustrated during that text exchange between you and Rosalio?
We were both frustrated. I think I was trying to explain to him what was going on and inform him what was going on, that I was frustrated. You know, we were only together for a few months, but we talked a lot, and we really had a good connection, and I really trusted him, and it felt like he really wanted to protect me from that, and genuinely. And so I think he was just trying to make me feel better, and just...
Was he genuine when he told you he was going to hang out with Michael Campbell the night that he had a date with Narita Macias? Is that genuine?
trying to be a nice person and, just making me feel protected. I think that's all that really was.
All right, so that was it then, I guess. Let's see what the last question was. Was there...
It was unusual that he didn't respond.
And in your previous conversations with Mr. Gutierrez, was he usually quick to respond to you?
Yes.
So did the length of time with him not responding cause you concern?
Objection, leaving.
So why on May 18th were you caused concern based on the lack of contact with Mr. Gutierrez?
Because that morning I didn't get, actually the previous night, I didn't get a good night text. And so that was alarming, or just, I wasn't sure. And then that morning I didn't get a good morning text. And so I thought that was weird. And then I texted him. And then I texted him in the afternoon again, and I still didn't get a response. And that started me kind of thinking that something was wrong, or that maybe something happened. So that's what, it definitely was unusual that he didn't respond to me.
But you don't know this guy. Your first reaction is that something's wrong. My first reaction would have been, he's just ghosting me, whatever. Like, I don't know why it was such cause for concern for her.
Cross?
Yes, limited, thank you. You said just now that you really trusted Mr. Gutierrez, correct?
I felt I could trust him, yes.
Did you know that on May 17th, the evening of May 17th, 2020, Mr. Gutierrez had planned to have a date with a different woman?
Irrelevant. Objection.
What's the relevance of
The
that?
relevance is if she trusted him. She's saying she trusted him, and also she's saying that she hadn't heard from him in the morning or evening of May 17th, morning of May 18th. If she knows if he was with another woman, then that could have provided an explanation to why he wasn't texting her.
Overall, you can answer the question.
I didn't know that he was meeting with anyone. Per our conversations and our interactions, I didn't have any reason to feel like he was interested in anybody else. Also, I understand that new relationships are difficult, so, I didn't know anything about it, but I didn't have any reason to feel like he was lying to me or that he was looking elsewhere, so.
No further questions.
You direct?
No, thank you.
You may step down, man.
And that was Sadie's testimony. What do you guys think? Was it reliable? Do you think you still have some questions about her testimony? Because I sure do. I have questions still about her and Rebecca Jekyll's texts together and why Sadie was so concerned, only having known this guy for a couple months. Things aren't adding up. And it's not in the way that things aren't adding up and it's all leading to Zach. It's things aren't adding up and there's a lot of holes in the story and we're not getting the answers. And I think Sadie has the answers to a lot of those holes in the story and we're not getting them. So that's why I titled this episode Shady Sadie, because I think she's shady. Do you guys think that she's shady? That's hard to say. That's a tongue twister. Anyways, let me know in the comments below what you think about Sadie's answers on the stand. What do you think about the witnesses that we talked about before? And now that we've gone through all the witnesses, our next episode we're going to do the state's case. So I'll play some clips of some of their testimony for putting on their case. But we won't go as in detail with everybody's testimony. We'll just play small portions. But anyways, thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.